ate it. Allah ate it.
Because he was too stupid.
Excuses.
Thousands. Who ate the apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Who ate the whole apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Allah ate it. Allah ate it.
Because he was too stupid.
Excuses.
Thousands. Who ate the apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Who ate the whole apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Allah ate it. Allah ate it.
Because he was too stupid.
Excuses.
Thousands. Who ate the apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Who ate the whole apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Allah ate it. Allah ate it.
Because he was too stupid.
Excuses.
Thousands. Who ate the apple? What happened?
All right. We are live at last, right on time for our scheduled 1:25 start time. Had some technical issues. Computer was acting very strange. Well, specifically the vMix program that I used to stream was acting very strange. Had the settings had somehow got messed up, and I had to redo them. Basically, is the gist of it. In any case, we are finally live. So welcome.
Who ate the
back
apple?
to Reason and Answers. You're home for the
crackhead clown individuals.
Today, we're going to be talking about the historical argument. We're going to be talking about whether Muhammad was a historical figure, a person of history or not. After Mary had the debate with Robert Spencer, we had an open call-in show where people could call in and ask their questions. And one of the requests in that show was to go through the sources, get the sources on the record. So Mary and I had a long stream in which we went through those sources. Unfortunately, individual Mel, who runs the channel Islamic Origins, was quite incensed about this, even though it was not in any way personal. It was not in any way directed at him. He was quite upset about the two streams and the debate itself, of course. And as a result, he has decided to go on the attack. He made a couple videos on his channel, a couple community posts on his channel directly attacking us. Then he roped in Jay Smith to respond without actually responding to our presentation. As he said in a comment, which we'll look at here in a second, or at least as he claimed in a comment, neither he nor Jay had bothered to watch our presentation. They said that only a loser, Mel's words, only a loser would spend 5 hours watching a live stream. He implied that we had told him he had to watch our streams and respond to them, which we most certainly did not do. I mean, if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. But if you want to respond to it, watch it. I mean, it's kind of that simple.
Yep. Quit pretending that you can respond to something that you haven't watched. I will shut down the haters, but I won't watch the video. And just to be clear, Mel definitely watched some of it because the organization of his supposed rebuttal with Jay shows that he at least briefed Jay on my early material because they went to the first.
Well, I think they got it just from the chart for the most part. Now, I do think that Mel definitely watched a substantial portion of it. I imagine Jay probably didn't watch anything. Jay was probably just briefed on what he was supposed to talk about by Mel. But I do believe that Mel probably actually did watch a substantial portion. Regardless, we have...
And I did begin by addressing something because Mel has put out there the idea that Muhammad mythicism, and I didn't say his name then, but Muhammad mythicism is an insult. And that if anyone says Muhammad mythicism, they're just insulting anyone who doesn't believe the standard narrative because my feelings, even though it's a totally normal historical term. So I addressed that at the beginning because he had done his best to poison the well as best as he possibly could.
Mm-hmm.
And I did address that.
So in any case, he's decided to escalate it. We're mostly Okay, so because of that and other things, right? We had already made this decision, but because of that and other
Yeah.
things, Mary and I are going to be spending a good amount of time on the historical argument in the coming weeks and months, probably. So today's show will be primarily focused on why this is an important question. We're going to look at a little bit of Jay's video, but we're not going to be going through like that extensively. All right. And the reason the video is called, or the reason this video is called as such, Jay called his video, Jay and Mel respond to 30 Muhammads, 30 false Muhammads in the 7th century. And he, as is normal, right? As is normal for someone doing this kind of thing, they come up with a different reason to dismiss each of the sources. It doesn't, no consistency needed, right? To dismiss each source by, one or two reasons that encompass all of them, that would be one thing. But to come up with a different reason to reject every source is in fact to give yourself the license to reject absolutely anything you want to reject. It's not a responsible way to do history. But in the process of that, they claimed that sources written by Christians were written by Muslims. Hence
Well, they must
why,
be claiming that because they said that this is a Muslim argument, and the quotes were from Christians
yes.
in the 7th century. So we have finally at last found Jay Smith. Jay Smith found his own 7th century Muslims. He had found them and identified them because he said these arguments are Muslim arguments. And since they come from 7th century Christians, he has now found his 7th century Muslims. You see, this is how logic works. When you make statements that impute things to people.
Okay, so
that,
when a
that has
Christian
meaning.
source, to give a little bit of context, now we're going to look at some other stuff and then we'll come back to this, but to give a little bit of context, Jay wants to dismiss the idea that Christians, a Christian source says the reason why some coins
we're
have
gonna play it.
crosses and the word Muhammad
Right.
on them.
Well,
And Jay says, you can't trust this. This is Muslims making the argument, which means Muslims wrote the text, which means they were Muslims in the 7th century, which he says doesn't exist. All right, we'll come back to that in a second, but I want to start with a couple comments made by Mel. And again, our purpose today is primarily to explain why we're doing this, explain why this is important. It is my intention not to make this personal, not to get into name calling and such, but I have to look at what Mel is putting out there, and he is in fact making it very personal. This is something he wrote on his channel. There was a mathematics professor who said, and the answer is obvious, blah. Is it obvious? He then spent 15 minutes silently doing mental computations, then continued, yes, it's obvious. He was my lecturer. I'm going to take this story at face value. Obviously, it was.
I don't.
Obviously, that's fine, Mary. Right? I'm going to be the generous one here and try to look at everything in the best possible light. I'm
a math tutor. That is incredibly insulting to say that.
I mean,
he's imputing
to him it's possible the guy. It's possible the guy was a bad teacher, right? Now, he spends taking the story at face value. He spends 15 minutes doing computations and then says, yes, it's obvious. Well, in that case, it's obviously not actually obvious, right? The irony is, and I can only assume that this is put here because I said that when someone says something is obvious, it often means they can't really provide a justification for it. And I assume that's why this is here, like some kind of coming back at me for saying that, except it kind of makes my point. So I'm not quite sure why I did that. In any case, I'm reminded of him as a certain dynamic duo. See, this isn't just my imagination. He's telling you that this is about us. Too many errors and irrational responses. So Mary is too many errors and I am irrational responses. Notice we have not called Mel any names. We have not made fun of his channel name, but this is his response to us. And want Jay and I to respond to their 9 hours of live stream since the debate. I did not ask anyone to respond to those, nor would I expect anyone to respond to a Q&A where people are calling in and asking their questions. What I did do after when it was quite clear Mel was upset, I said I gave him the opportunity to pose questions for the Q&A. I don't think that means watch the whole thing and make a response video. I think that means I'm offering the opportunity for him to get questions on the record that he feels we are making an error. For example, I kid you not. Okay. I didn't ask you to respond, and I certainly didn't ask Jay to respond.
Nope.
That was just 2 live streams. Okay. Yeah. The second one is very long. The second one is like 5.5 hours because we went through every source. It's intended to be a reference work where you can go back when a specific source comes up and look at that 10 minutes or something of the thing. I don't know why this is multiple laughing faces. Had I broken that video over 3 days, would that somehow have made it acceptable? I don't know. I can't bear to listen to more than 5 minutes of her barbed wire ramblings. So
Can he clothe to listen since he can't bear to listen?
So this is Mel's declaration that he has determined that Mary is constantly in error, and I am completely irrational when he hasn't even listened to 5 minutes. Now, I don't know what is the most generous assumption I can make here. I mean, one assumption, and that thing's not working right for some reason. I obviously didn't get all the settings right, so I'll just leave the stats off. But in any case, one possible assumption is that he's exaggerating. One could say saying something untrue, and he actually listened to a considerable amount and actually thought there was considerable amounts of errors. The other is that he's telling the truth, that he didn't listen to it, but he still has somehow concluded it's full of errors. I'm not sure which is the more generous assumption, but I think those are the only 2 possibilities there, and neither one looks very good. God knows how many absurd claims were made in defense of the veracity of these semi-Muslims. That's a very crucial word there. Of the veracity of the sources by these semi-Muslims. So he's calling Mary and I semi-Muslims.
If you do not support Mohammed mythicism, you are semi-Muslim. And I will show you again that Jay Smith will double down on this point. Either you agree with Jay Smith and Mel, who is feeding him information, or you are a semi-Muslim. Because apparently, if you're not Muslim, you must be dedicated to absolutely horrific, terrible, disingenuous arguments.
Dr. Kufarphobius has got to say there's too much talking that wasn't really needed. I mean, sure, it could have been done in less amount of time. The nature of a live stream, we're interacting with like people like you, right? In fact, part of the reason why it was long is because we were interacting specifically with you.
With you.
So that's kind of funny. He says it could have been shorter, but yeah, indeed it could have been shorter. But to his credit, he also points out that we provided the PowerPoint. Mel was informed there was a PowerPoint. He could have gone and looked at the PowerPoint, but instead they still chose to respond to imagined arguments rather than what is saying. Cargo Cruises, so Thaddeus, you are committing to the sin 100%? Right. No, I am not. See, this is the false dilemma that people like Mel and you, frankly, are pushing, that either you say Muhammad is a myth or you're a Muslim.
Yep. And that's exactly it. Oh, and Jay Smith cannot even articulate what Muslims believe correctly. He cannot. He says all kinds of things that he says they believe that are just false. Muslims do not believe that Ibn Ishaq was a companion of Muhammad. They do not believe that Al-Bukhari is a companion of Muhammad. They do not believe that the Kaaba was a place where Abraham smashed the idols. That's literally impossible in their narrative. Now, I believe what a rational person dealing with the sources in a rational manner would believe, which is that the Mecca was most likely an uninhabited pagan site that people visited sometimes, at least by the end of the 3rd century. And then, but not before the 1st century BC. Did not exist. It's a regular, ordinary pagan site, like dozens of other pagan sites. It has a pagan stone, like dozens of other pagan stones. There's nothing special about it. Jay Smith says there is something special about it. I disagree. There is nothing special about the Kaaba. There's nothing special about the stones. There's nothing special about the masjid or having a well there or anything else. These are all normal components of Arabian paganism. And it was a pagan site for hundreds of years, and they found themselves at a place where their importance was based on their pagan site, but almost so few tribes were left that were pagan. At first, they actually benefited from it because the northern shrine shut down. So all the pagans really had to come to these secondary shrines. But then everybody starts converting, and they feel the noose tightening, and they feel like they're the only pagans left in the world. So what are they going to do about it?
So this is very interesting. Positive Vibe says, no, Mel doesn't divide people like that. This is a post from his channel. So what do you mean he doesn't divide people like that?
He just did. He just said that you're semi-Muslim.
Which, by the way,
if you support the Christian sources, we're going through Christian sources. If you say these Christians mean what they say they mean, and you don't distort them and lie about them, frankly, Mel may be lying to himself, but he's absolutely lying to himself.
To be clear, Mel, I want to be 100% clear on this point. I don't think that Mel is intentionally passing off false information. He is self-deceived, but he is nonetheless deceived. He is nonetheless saying false information.
And he is saying false information about Christians.
So Mel doesn't divide people like that. Well, okay, first of all, he called us semi-Muslims because he didn't want to deal with us. So he just dismisses it as the semi-Muslims. Multiple laughing face emojis in this post. And some of the comments, none of the comments call him out on this. Some of them are also calling us names, and he hearts those comments. So, I mean, don't say he's not being divisive. He absolutely is being divisive. That's okay. He can be divisive if he wants. He can attack us if he wants. That is his choice, and his behavior reflects on him. Ironically, right, you're saying he's had on people on his channel believing this in. First of all, I don't think that's the case. I'm not aware of anyone who's come on his channel. Well, they might have come on for an unrelated purpose, but I don't think anyone has come on to challenge him on his historical critique. I could be wrong. I haven't watched everything he's ever done. So if there's specific examples, do let me know. But I will point out again that I invited Mel to come on and have a discussion. I invited him to have a friendly discussion with me only if Mary was too threatening. I invited him to have a somewhat less friendly discussion with Mary, with me moderating, and I promised to keep Mary in check and to speak primarily against her. He declined. I mean, he's not obligated to accept that, but the offer was there. Likewise, in the video description of this video, there's an open challenge for a debate between Mary and either Mel or Jay on the topic that Jay claims that no one can answer. Was there a Quran in the 7th century? That's the topic he said in the introduction to the video. He said, unfortunately, they're challenging us on these less important points. No one wants to challenge us on if there's a Quran in the 7th century. So we have that challenge open. I have had many people. I've had Mel himself on this channel like 5 times to present his research. Never once did I name call and say get out of here, you're semi-Muslim or something. So just face reality, okay? Just that's all I ask, is that you face reality and actually evaluate his behavior. he can repent and say that this post was a mistake, or he can double down on it. I mean, that's his choice. Why don't you go all in and say the Shahada if you dress like them?
And my
Yes.
question is, how stupid are you really? I have covered many times that the reason that I dress in a costume for this channel is because my husband doesn't want me looking like I do as I walk around every day. And because Muhammad explicitly said what happens to women who wear turbans. Go ahead and answer me, Positive Vibes. What happens to women who wear fake hair, like fake eyelashes? Go ahead and answer me, Positive Vibes. Answer me. Answer me.
So,
oh my gosh. It is Muslim clothing.
What nonsense? Okay, first of all, lots of cultures have head covering. The command of Muhammad is to cover your face so you can't be recognized.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, the clothing that Al-Fadi wears, and I don't have a problem with him wearing his clothing. You say it's the traditional clothing of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, that's 100% Muslim. But that doesn't count. That's not dressing like a Muslim.
But dressing like Muslims actually don't dress, that somehow is.
Yep.
Because the turban that I chose is a style that is very popular in what part of Africa? West Africa, among Christians.
Yeah, lots of Christians, lots of Sikhs, lots of various cultures in world history have had head coverings. It's a multicultural thing, and Mary is not following the commandment of Muhammad, which is almost exclusively, despite what Muslims claim, not about hair covering, but about face covering. So if these are the level of arguments you're going to bring, I mean, come on, man, be serious. Anyway, let's continue with Mel's post here. As Providence would have it, we have prepared a critical examination of 18 pieces of 7th century sources. I'm not sure why he's claiming Providence, why he's claiming God will.
Himself is involved in this.
When they obviously made this in response to, at minimum, the debate. So this is not like some weird coincidence. It was a direct response to us, but apparently it's providential.
Mel himself got Jay to respond because he wanted Jay's backup. This is what happened, but now he's crediting God. I guess he's God. Awesome.
Kathy D says Jay Smith is awesome. I will, and I'm going to reiterate this again. I've said this multiple times. This isn't personal. I like Jay. He's a very nice guy. He has an amazing heart for the gospel. He has an amazing heart for evangelism. And he has probably brought many people to the truth of Christianity. However, this is about truth, and his position is not tenable. Cargo crew, I was planning on it. Okay, like things keep coming up. I will tell you my position. You're not going to like it, but I'm going to tell you my position. My position is that each, let's just say, story, right? And each story needs to be evaluated on its own merits. Each story needs to be put through the historical critical method and determined whether this is likely what actually happened or not. I know that you want a black and white position where you say it's all good or it's all bad, but that's not a responsible way to actually determine history. You have to look at each piece of material and determine on its own. And having done that, I mean, not that I'm not claiming to have evaluated every single hadith, right? But having evaluated the major elements of the story, I believe that there was a 7th century Arabian person, probably named Muhammad, who started a religious movement that grew and developed into modern Islam. Modern Islam is different than the teachings of Muhammad, but they are materially similar, right? Because this is a religion that has constantly changed and innovated itself and evolved in response to outside criticism. They've changed doctrines and such. So it's not identical to what Muhammad taught. Certainly, I don't think that he actually was receiving revelation from God. Certainly, I don't think that he was a legitimate prophet in any sense whatsoever. I think that there was a combination of factors at work, one being demonic influence, and the other being him remembering stories from the past and passing those off as revelation, or when specifically challenged, asking around to find out what the correct answer to the challenge is, and then passing that off as revelation. So a combination of being deceived by a demon and deceiving the people. And this is actually how most cults are, right? That the person organizing it in some sense believes in their own nonsense, but in another sense knows that they're not. They can have both ideas at the same time, right? They can believe that they have a mission from God and also know that they're being fraudulent in specific cases when they're claiming it. That is a possibility. That is what I believe happened here. I believe that this person brought the Quran, by and large. There might be some minor editing after his time, but by and large brought what we have as the Quran, at least in terms of the words. The ordering is determined arbitrarily, mostly by from longest to shortest. After the time of Muhammad, it wasn't collected in a single collection at his time, and they needed to determine an order. Verse numbers are completely arbitrary. They have been, added after, well, not completely arbitrary, because they follow the rhythm of the passage, but they weren't brought by Muhammad, is what I meant. Many of the Hadith reflect a historical reality. Probably none of them are like word for word exactly what Muhammad said, but they reflect a historical reality about an actual teaching of Muhammad. The Hadith chains are complete nonsense. They are completely made up. Is that clear enough on what my position is? I know it's nuanced. I know it's difficult. I know it's not as easy as just saying Muhammad never existed in terms of being able to say it out loud. But in terms of actual academic rigor, in terms of actual responsible handling of history, this is how all of history is done.
All right.
All right. So let me just finish off this. So claims providence, kind of irresponsible in my opinion, but nonetheless, people talk that way. Let's get to the straw man of irrational responses. What straw man? I'm a straw man. Okay, got it. You know what a straw man is? Not taking someone's position seriously, not bothering to listen to more than 5 minutes of it, and then thinking you can rebut it. That is yeah, I am definitely a straw man to him, because he isn't willing to address my actual arguments, my actual position. He just wants to dismiss me as being a semi-Muslim. So let's get the straw man of irrational responses out of the way. I'm not denying there weren't 7th century figures who claimed to be a prophet or a Muhammad, or that they were, I think he meant weren't, violent. So the idea I'm a mythicist is absurd and misrepresentation of my position. No, you just don't understand what Muhammad mythism is. It's not.
I can't understand for you. I can teach you, but I can't understand for you. Just like your math tutor cannot do the understanding for you, neither can I. If you cast doubt on the historical narrative of a dude named Muhammad from Mecca who was a self-declared prophet, if you do that, you are a Muhammad mythicist, and you can be as offended as you like, but this is a normative term. If I wanted to insult you, I would call you a fantasist. A mythicist is a person who says that Muhammad is not necessarily the general figure that he appears to be. Not any specifics. It's not saying, oh, he didn't have a face in the shape of a moon or whatever, right? It's saying that the general outline of Muhammad is to be cast into doubt, that and may be a mythical construction. That's what Muhammad mythicism is. Now, if I wanted to talk about what you're doing, I would call you a fantasist. A fantasist is a person who makes up stories. In the technical usage, a mythicist is a person who ascribes potentially mythical characteristics to someone else, while a fantasist is a general term for someone who makes things up.
Accusing Thaddeus to be semi-Muslim by Mel could be at best a tongue-in-cheek comment. Yeah, I mean, I suppose at best that's what it could be.
It
Thaddeus
wasn't,
is,
though.
I know, but there's nothing in this to indicate that it is, right? And Mel says the same thing
No,
on
but-
other
yeah.
comments as well. Thaddeus has personally lost his employment. That is true. I'm sure Mel didn't mean it at face value. Well, I'm glad that
I
you're
think he did.
sure what's in Mel's mind. But just for the record, I have also reached out to Mel in private and given him the opportunity to apologize or explain himself on this. Told him that it is profoundly offensive to call Christians Muslims. You are calling us worshipers of the demon god Allah by calling us Muslims. I consider that to be a very high insult. If this is the way you want to behave, that's on you. But I do not think this is the way Jesus would behave. I do not think this is Christ-like behavior. I don't go around saying people are fake Christians just because they disagree with me. I accept sometimes to great criticism. I accept a variety of beliefs on doctrines as being valid Christian positions. And I certainly don't think that your position on who Muhammad is has any bearing on whether you're a Christian unless you're calling him a true prophet of God, obviously. If you're calling him a true prophet of God, obviously you're not a Christian. You're something in the vicinity of being a Muslim. Yeah, your other beliefs would determine whether you're actually a Muslim. But if you're calling Muhammad a true prophet of God, you're obviously not really a believer in Jesus Christ, who completes the work of the divine plan. Why would there be another prophet after him, right? In the biblical sense, in the full prophetic sense that Muslims would claim, as opposed to, the more minor sense as found in the epistles of people speaking prophecy. All right, with all that out of the way, let's get to the other comments of Mel real quick. This is the long one. This one was going to take the most time. The others are a bit shorter. So here, Mel says,
Oh, this is in response to a request to respond
to us, yes.
this
Not by us,
specific
by
stream.
a
Not by
listener.
us, but a request to respond to the specific stream where I went through the sources. He wants to see their response to those full sources, which they will not give, of course. But then he says, we have done a video examining the sources, which some of the sources overlap. They don't examine all of them.
Mm-hmm.
They ignore the ones that are the most problematic for their own theory. Again, if you are dealing with things responsibly and honestly, you deal with everything. You don't sweep things under the rug and only concentrate on the ones that are easiest to construe in a different light and then pretend that the others don't exist. But that's what Mel chooses to do. That's
Mm-hmm.
what Jay chooses to do. And I think that's very telling.
Exactly. This is part of a long thread with that request. Mel's response is, we have done a video examining the sources. Jay will release it soon. It's not a direct response because neither of us have time or inclination to sit through 5 hours of live stream. So again, saying that he hasn't actually watched it. And then Dr. Kufar here says she did provide her PowerPoint of her sources, right? Thank you, Dr. Kufar, for pointing out that he has the opportunity to reveal it. And instead of actually, looking at the video, skimming through the video or skimming through the PowerPoint or doing anything that would constitute and make an actual attempt to respond to us, we will address the video. In the video, the sources she alludes to, so Mary just alludes to the sources apparently, that were listed in the debate. So that's the actual criteria, is they took the screenshot from the debate and imagined what her argument might be instead of actually looking at her argument.
Because that's how you do things, right?
And then, to be little small on the text here, nothing I can do about that because there's a lot. We're not going to read Mary's whole response, but I wanted to get Mel's comment to Mary. So you already saw that he's calling me irrational responses. He's calling most of us semi-Muslims. So he says to Mary, Mary, you are not a nice person. You should.
And just to be clear, he did this after, just out of the blue, with no provocation.
Yep.
Having a 45-minute video where he called me names, misinformed people about what Muhammad mythicism means, and then made actually false statements about the sources because he wouldn't look at all of the material. He only looked at his snapshots. And to keep from having the parts that proved him wrong, he only looked at other parts. So he picked a few sources that he really, really likes, the Maronite Chronicle and Arculf, and he did not look at the parts that had the things in it.
I mean, well, how could he? I mean, by his own admission, right? By his own admission, he hasn't actually looked at what you said. So he's just guessing what he thinks you might have said and responding to what he thinks you might have said. Anyway, he says you should speak respectfully. So I have a question for you, Mel. Is calling me irrational assumptions, speaking respectfully, is calling Mary too many heirs, speaking respectfully, is calling us semi-Muslims, speaking respectively, is putting multiple laughing face emojis when you're thinking about us, speaking respectfully. Just a question there.
And keep in mind that you have no life. You have no life if you have a 5-hour live stream.
Yeah.
But you can have a 45-minute live stream.
We haven't gotten to that
ahead.
yet, Mary. So you should speak respectfully. You show total disrespect to Robert Spencer. It was a debate. Obviously, they're in opposition to one another. I mean, by your whatever standard you're using, that either Mary and Robert were both respectful or they were both disrespectful, because they both made one or two snide comments. It happens. It's
Mine was not intentionally snide, to be fair.
Well, I don't know if Robert's was either, right? Neither of them have gone on and bashed the other person outside of that stream. The only person going around bashing people is Mel.
Yep.
That says everything about you. Okay. Does it say everything about you that you're going around insulting us, Mel? Spending 5 hours on a live stream. Seriously, get a life. Well, I'm sorry that my audience actually finds me entertaining and or actually finds Mary informative and thus are interested in my 5-hour live stream, or our 5-hour live stream, in which we go through every possible source because we want them in one video instead of we could have done, a 30-minute show on one video or on one source and then a 20-minute show on another or whatever. That was a possibility. We could have done that. But that's not the way we chose to do it. So what? Hey, Mel, I am a total loser. I have no life. You know why I have no life and I am a total loser who spends all my time streaming on YouTube and trying to evangelize the world? One, because this semi-Muslim got fired from his job for speaking against Islam. I got fired from my employer for speaking against Islam. And you actually know this because I told you that privately at the time. So there's that. Two, I have a heart for evangelizing Muslims and bringing them to the truth of the gospel. And one way I do that is through live streams. I'm sorry that I have no life and I want to evangelize Muslims. Three, I care greatly about what is true. I don't just care whether this works or not. I actually want my argument to be true. I spend a great deal of time fact-checking things that most people would just pass off as true because they heard it from someone and it fits their position. Many times I have encountered things that people said about Muslims or about Islam that I thought, well, this would make a great video. I put in research,
you look into it,
and then I didn't make anything.
True.
So I spent hours of my time getting ready to do a video, found it was not true, and then just abandoned it, threw it away. That time gone.
Yep.
Because I care about what's true. So sorry that I'm such a loser.
And when people have some little silly idea in their head and run and put out a video because it tickles their fancy and they have this thought and they begin spreading this thought as if it were information, then misinformation abounds and it becomes more difficult to have rational arguments or find the information and have rational arguments with people. There are sources that people talk about that just don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Thaddeus wouldn't be through with his intro in 30 minutes.
I know. But note that I know my scripted videos. I do know how to make a short, compact videos. The purpose of a live stream is not to get the information out in the least amount of time. Right? At least in my opinion, the primary reason to do something as a live stream is to have interaction with the audience. You don't enjoy that? Don't watch my live streams, right? Way more people watch my short scripted videos than watch my live streams, as is, the case for everyone pretty much, but still. A couple comments from the audience that I'll take here in a second, but let's get through this first. I'm just going to read the first part of Mary's response, but if you want to read the whole thing, it's on the screen. Pause, zoom in, whatever. You slander me repeatedly. I've not apologized. That's true. You're projecting your feelings again. That's true. You're unable to think rationally because you're so emotional about this. I would say from my evaluation, that seems to be true. No one attacked Mel. He is acting like he is under attack. He seems very emotional. I don't care about you. Well, I care about Mel.
Well, I don't care about his opinions
I know.
on this. That's what I meant. I didn't mean.
I know.
Like, I don't care about him as a human being. I don't mean that he could be set on fire. I meant, like, I didn't go into a debate with Robert Spencer, of all people, going, "Ooh, I hope Mel sees this." Like, come on. I'm addressing this because it's misinformation. It's very popular.
Mm-hmm.
Mel is like this tangential figure that feeds Jay Smith, but Jay Smith doesn't even listen to Mel whenever Mel tells him that certain things shouldn't be said because they're untrue. So really, the central figure is Jay. Mel's catching heat because Mel decided to insert himself.
Let me just make this clear again. All right. Obviously, this nominally started, although Mary and I had been talking about this a long time, but as far as like there being a public dispute, this nominally started with the debate between Mary and Robert. Mary and I have a great deal of respect for Robert. We disagree with his conclusions. We think that there are potential, errors in his methodology and such, but we have a great deal of respect for him and the work he does. And we don't consider him in the same category as people like Mel or Jay. Mel definitely is prone to wild speculation. He's definitely prone to taking a thought he has and then running with it and promoting it as an idea that is viable when he hasn't himself looked into it at all. And then maybe a month down the line, he realizes that idea didn't go anywhere, and then he stops making videos about it. I'm sure if you watch any of the videos of Mel on my channel, he won't agree with anything he himself said in those videos because he's constantly changing his position, which is fine, right? That's actually a good thing to be able to adopt your position. On the other hand, it is kind of irresponsible to constantly pass something off as like this new great discovery, and then a week later realize that it was nothing, and you just promoted this as some great proof against the historical Muhammad.
And keep in mind that if your argument is that there is not enough data to talk about a historical Muhammad, you need a greater amount of data of higher quality to make any kind of other statement. You need to meet your own threshold. And if you can say that maybe Mohammedism comes from 8 different places, then clearly you don't have that level of information and have never had it.
So Good Emperor says, I'm behind the loop. Who's Jay Smith? Perfect. I was just coming to Jay. So Mel has a very small audience. I don't really take him all that seriously because he's constantly changing his ideas. Like I think that's great as a person, right? Evaluating it. But I think it's irresponsible to be publishing ideas that you're going to reject a week later. Just my personal opinion, though, right? That's debatable. What isn't debatable is that he is prone to wild speculation and thus will constantly change his ideas. I don't think he does vigorous research. I think in the terms of like actually, critically evaluating things, I think he probably does a good amount of research. He probably spends a good amount of time on this, which potentially, means he has no life by his own standard, but I'm not saying that. I think it's good to do a lot of research. but he doesn't seem willing and or capable of critically evaluating things. So whatever he found most recently is the most important piece of evidence in his mind. It doesn't matter how insignificant it is. It could be a 14th century painting, or it could be an 8th century document, and they're the same level of credibility in his mind, or actually, whichever one he found more recently is more credible. Any case, so now coming to Jay Smith. Jay Smith is the most popular voice in the Muhammad mythism, the idea that there was never any figure who started the religious movement of Islam. It was a conglomeration of a bunch of different ideas brought together in the 9th century. Jay is the leading voice. He has well over 100,000 subscribers on his channel. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but he's quite significant. He's been doing Christian ministry work his entire life, I believe. I believe he was doing on the ground missionary work for decades before he ever began to speak against Islam. He's been speaking against Islam for multiple decades as well. He spent a great deal of time speaking against Islam in the same ways that we would do, pointing out the immorality of Muhammad, countering the idea of scientific miracles in the Quran, addressing Muslim arguments, addressing polemics against Christianity, and so forth. At some point, he became very interested in the historical critique. And over time, he's moved further and further away from the idea that, originally he would just be in a position similar to Mary and I, where there are questions about the narrative, right? We're not accepting everything as blindly. And then, like, little by little, he began to reject more and more of it, to the point where he now believes that Muhammad didn't exist. None of the rightly guided caliphs existed, and Islam appeared wholesale, basically, in the 9th century, based on mistranslations of Christian documents, language confusion, etc., etc. Powerful empire creating new religion. It's kind of, the details kind of, fluctuate from time to time, but that's a general idea of his position, that Islam came about in the 9th century from a variety of sources being cobbled together, many of which were Christian writings about Jesus, which were mistranslated or misapplied to this figure of Muhammad that was invented wholesale at that time. That's his position. Like I said, very popular. Back in the day, I don't hear very much from Muslims about Jay Smith anymore. They don't seem to be very threatened by his current work. But back in the day, when I was starting this, the main two voices I would hear Muslims complain about is David Wood and Jay Smith. David Wood and Jay Smith. How much of that was my own watching and the videos I was looking at comments on, I don't know. But those seem to be the two most important figures in the minds of Muslims. Now, I don't know if Jay for sure had the second most subscribers back then. This would have been before Apostate Prophet was really on the scene at all. Christian Prince might have had more subscribers, but Muslims usually don't pay that much attention to Christian Prince for whatever reason. I think he definitely had more than Al-Fadi at the time. I think Al-Fadi might have more now, but I think at the time Jay definitely had more. I think he probably was the second largest in terms of YouTube presence as well. But definitely he was the second largest in terms of the Muslim mindset from my perspective. So important guy and historically in this work, and very important in that he's the primary voice pushing this. He's going to churches, speaking about it. He's training Christians and how to do this. And that's the problem, right? That's why we're speaking out here, is primarily because of Jay and how he is misinforming Christians to make very bad arguments against Islam. And by very bad arguments, I mean arguments that the Muslim, if they spend time and they investigate matters, will quickly realize are not viable critiques against Islam and thus be strengthened in their faith. I'm Absolutely, there will be people who leave Islam from these arguments, but they're going to be people who already had a foot out of the door and were just looking for an excuse. Just like there will be atheists who say they became atheists because Jesus is a myth. Did they actually like vigorously investigate it and conclude, oh yeah, I really believed in this Jesus guy, but it turns out he's a myth? No, of course not. They already were doubting for one reason or another. They encountered some nonsense propaganda about how Mithraeus is exactly identical to Jesus, and they're like, oh, this is the proof I needed. I'm out of Christianity. So Jay will reach some people who are already on the fence. But as far as like committed Muslims, I don't think this is a viable argument against the religion. It would be a viable argument if the material was true. Unfortunately, the material is not true. All right, I think that position is quite clear now. Let me take a couple comments from the audience. David K. triggered, who ate the apple as we are starting there? Super chat from Cargo Crew, which is also a question.
If you want your wealth to increase in this dunya, then give sadaqah more and more. Every single day, 2 angels come down. One of them is making dua for those who give. He says, Ya Allah, give those who give.
And
So,
can I answer this one?
can I read it first?
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
I'll let you answer it. I've talked plenty, but let me read it. And thank Cargo Crew. Thank you, Cargo Crew, for your very generous donation and all your support despite disagreeing with us. That actually shows a lot about who you are. So how will you evaluate the Sirah and Hadith? Can you give a bulletproof example? Are you going to use Isnad? Are you going to look up Muslim notebooks? How can you be that naive to know? And it got covered up there. How can you be that naive? You do know the Sharia, right? Okay, thank you. All right, thank you for that. Mary, I'll let you answer since I've already answered my methodology.
Okay, so very quickly, if you're looking at a hadith story or a story from Sirah, what you would look at is, remember that these are all individual reports that are floating around in isolation and they get compiled by people who think that they're true. Well, are they really true? If it mentions something that is wildly ahistorical, you can throw it out right away. Like if they're talking about one of the sources, it's really interesting. They only address two quote unquote heresies in Islam, and they're both heresies from the second fitna period. None of them address anything that was a debate that occurs after 680. And that is very strong evidence that by the turn of the 8th century, 700 AD, that means that people weren't really fabricating and adding to the material in a way that we can see in the material now. Very important. Secondly, you look for a story and see whether or not it interlocks with other stories, because these are all independent sources. Even if they're from multiple people, they're telling these like as anecdotes on their own. And especially if different hadith that have no real context in themselves lock together and form a long coherent narrative, especially across years. Like something happens, if you have a cause, you have an effect, and then that will change things, and then you have another effect, and that will change things, and you'll have another effect. So like in your life, stuff happens and some of it matters. If it's something that should matter, you better see it mattering, because otherwise it didn't happen. None of the, oh, we kept eating out of a bowl and it had more and more food stories, none of those affect anything else. And everyone is equally surprised and amazed every time it happens. And they have no context for them. They have no meaning. These are obviously just trying to imitate Jesus. Mm-hmm. No one's ever converted to Islam because they saw an endless bowl of food, right? That never happened. There's no knock-on effect from any of these stories because they are made up. But there are knock-on effects from things like Muhammad being unable to heal people from fever. Several years later, you have a dude scratching lice on his head that he doesn't dare to get rid of because he thinks he will lose Allah's blessing. and the lice is falling into the food that he's making for Muhammad. And there is a chain of events that begins with Muhammad's storytelling, and then it goes on to the effects of him being a prophet, people believing his storytelling. And so you have this very neat, clear, extraordinarily clearly historical event chain. That happened. That happened. Now, some things you can't place one way or another. A lot of the Abu Huraira stuff is kind of floating out on its own and doesn't connect because it's all wise sayings of Muhammad. How many of those are fabricated? But here's the thing. Other people believed that that's the kind of thing that Muhammad said.
Mhm.
So it doesn't change the kind of person he is. People who were second generation, first generation are all like, yeah, that sounds like something he would say. And so they accepted it, but can't say with certainty for a lot of the stuff. Now, the stuff that's in the Quran and then the Hadith explain it more. A lot of times there's strong evidence that those are also historical, just internally. So
Mhm.
that is the normative way to evaluate these things.
Yep, I agree with what Mary said there. I don't have anything to add other than thanks again for your support. And I'm going to take your follow-up comment where you said, well, you said, guys, we're all on the same side. Well, not on this issue, we're not. And see, that's the problem, right? We didn't speak against this for a long time because we're like, we don't want to speak against other Christians. But we now feel that it's gone to the point where it's damaging the Christian cause in addition to being false. So before we were just putting out our opinion, now we actually want to directly counteract it. But this is the one I really wanted to address. ChatGPT can also write a hadith, so what? Do you really think the argument was something is written, therefore it's true? I mean, you could just say that about every piece of historical documentation ever. Other people wrote stuff that was false. You got to have a standard that actually allows you to evaluate a particular source and not just dismiss what you want, right? So the only way you'd be consistent with an argument like that is if you rejected every single historical source ever. And if you want to tell me you can't know anything about history, I mean, you can tell me that. I don't personally find that to be a helpful position, but it would be a consistent position that we can just never really know what's true about the history and what isn't. What you can't intellectually honestly come to a conclusion on, though, is that somehow the Islamic sources are clearly false and normal historical sources are clearly true. It's not like normal histories have isnads on them or something, right? You don't read Tacitus and he says, here's the exact, he doesn't even tell you what his sources are.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't even tell you his immediate source, even though everything he's writing, he's getting from a source. None of it is from his own personal eyewitness testimony. So historians, they evaluate history primarily under the methods that Mary was describing there, where it's congruence. Does this form a cohesive story? Do the details interlock with one another? Does this make sense? Because the assumption, and technically speaking it's assumption, but it's a pretty reasonable assumption, is that generally people are trying to give true information, right? And they have a purpose, they have bias, they distort things, but they're not just making things up wholesale and pretending they're history. This idea of historical fiction is a 20th century invention. It's not something that ancient people did where they intentionally wrote historical fiction. All right, so just to be clear. But that doesn't mean we accept it either. We evaluate it on its own merits on a one-by-one thing. Number of questions from the audience, which we can run through pretty quickly. And then we will get into the clips from Jay that we wanted to evaluate today and Mary's explanation of why this is important, in addition to what we've already said, of course. Anyone know his earliest complete Quran that matches the 1924 Hafs? Well, I mean, if you mean letter for letter, probably none, right?
nor does it matter, because the issue is how big are the differences in
Right.
terms of a historical point of view. It may be a problem for Muslims, but I'm talking about from a historian's point of view. It does not matter if there are letter level differences. Does not matter. That's how things are transmitted. That is
Yeah,
how
exactly. It's
text
the nature of
exists.
handwritten documents.
Historical text exists that way. If you're going to play this game, then you're like, well, guess what? We don't have anything about Alexander the Great, because like there are
Well, I
differences
mean,
between our manuscripts. Like, come on.
yeah, I mean, we have 10,000 plus biblical manuscripts. Okay, most of those are fragmented. Let's just throw out the fragmentary copies. We have a couple thousand complete copies of at least one book of the New Testament, right? Name two of them that are exactly identical to one another, or name the earliest one that's exactly identical to, say, Textus Receptus
There's
or
none.
the NA28.
There's none.
Right? So, I mean,
Just like
you got to
there's
have a consistent
none
standard.
that's identical to the hops, because these are copied by human beings.
Yep. Misha SWB says, so is the whole Petra versus Mecca also a myth?
Yes. The Qiblas did not change direction. I think we're done with that one.
Yep.
I've done an entire
That's all I was
stream
going
on
to say. I
it.
was going to say we have a whole
Yep.
show on that. Just search for Petra and you will find it, or search for Qibla. I think actually we have two shows on it, but search for Qibla. That'll be the one that specifically goes into the measurements. Unfortunately, Dan Gibson's material is not entirely accurate. I don't attribute any fraud to him, just enthusiasm for his idea, and thus allowing himself to tweak the numbers a bit.
You cannot know what the answer should be before you take the measurements. You can't. Yep. That will affect you. You can think it won't. It will. You cannot know what you think the answer should be before you take the measurement, or allow it to cover you or color your answer, unless, of course, you are fabricating high school science experiments, in which case it's very helpful to know what the answer should be.
Do you know that from experience?
I have actually just thrown in delta E in some of my equations in the middle just to change things. Delta error. Change error. Change error equals +3, and then you get the right answer. And the teacher didn't notice.
That's all right. We'll allow your indiscretion as a high school student. We won't hold that against you for the rest of your life. Elta said, I actually came to watching apologetics through Christian Prince. I wonder what his apologetic view on him, like David, AP, God Logic, that is, etc. I don't think that there is a general view of people. I think that Christian Prince is probably a legitimate Christian. I think that his material is probably effective for some people. It's not the kind of material I personally want to watch, but no one is for everyone. I don't expect everyone to like my material. I don't expect everyone to like Christian Prince. I don't expect everyone to like David Wood or God Logic or AP.
Yeah, but the crazy sources that he says are actually real. I have never caught him fabricating a source or just completely turning it on its head, as insane as it sometimes seems.
Yep, nothing too earth dropping there against Christian Prince. Allah says, I'm going to drop my ATM number if someone wants to give me loans. Thank you for that. Nicodemus says, ever want to help things along, but instead end up throwing fuel onto the fire. This is how all of this feels. And I do acknowledge that, this was not an easy decision, but this is a very intentional, conscious decision.
He means that he's afraid that he has, because he made a comment to Jay that kind of, but here's the thing. I have been putting off confronting this for a really long time. But I went back, and after that comment, I looked at some of Jay's recent material, and I was just so deeply horrified that he's teaching Christians to say this, that I'm like, no, gotta do this. This is horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was going to say, I'm not sure if this is supporting us, supporting Jay, or was a personal comment, but regardless, absolutely right. This is not something that we're approaching lightly, but it is something that we believe is definitely necessary. Manuel says, in all honesty, Islam has made up a lot of things, myth and twisting, that were there in the century that it started. Well, without like getting into details, if Muhammad made up a myth, then that would be congruent with Muhammad being a real historical figure, which is the question we're asking here. No one is asking, is Islam true? We all believe that Islam is a blatantly false religion with all kinds of false teachings, myths, if you like. No one is in disagreement with that. If the teachings go way back to very early Islam, it's a perfectly reasonable conclusion to say they come from Muhammad. We can't say for 100% absolute certainty, just like we can't say anything with 100% absolute certainty, but the most reasonable conclusion is that Muhammad himself made up such a myth. Anything you want to add, Mary?
Nope. I'm grabbing a screenshot right now.
Alrighty. Super chat from Carl Christian Roberts.
Who ate the apple? You ate the apple. The whole apple. Yes, the whole apple. You ate it. But a small seed, you left it. You put it back into the earth. What happened? Allah, through His power, caused that to grow and to give you how many apples? Thousands.
Thank you, Carl, very much for that. Is Mimi Hijab's, Hegab, since that's his real name, Hegab, court document an authentic Hadith? I think it is. I think it is. Definitely want to talk more about that. I'm trying to get access to as many of the court documents as possible. I'm not a UK citizen. I'm not familiar with the UK court system. Checked into it, and it appears that the important proceedings are public record, but the evidence is up to the judge's discretion whether they want to allow the public access to that or not. There are thousands of pages of documents in this case, and so I put in an inquiry as a interested media reporter wanting to cover this case in the interest of the public, because Muhammad Hijab is a public figure, if the documents can be unsealed. So we'll see on that, but definitely we'll be talking more about that either way. And thank you very much for your super chat. Let me go ahead and take the rest of them that we have so far. Just since we're at a nice stopping point, Nissan Attic gifted 10 Reasons Answers memberships, which for some reason didn't trigger. Yeah, it's just saying error failed. I think it's not connecting to the Video Ninja, and it thus is not going forward. Anyway, it might randomly start playing at some point, but thank you for the 10 gifted memberships and all of your support all the time, Nissan Attic there. And finally, a super sticker from Brandon M. Thank you very much for your financial support. So, Mary, did you want to get to your presentation, or did you want to get to the first of the video?
My presentation.
All right, let me know when you want me to bring up the video clips. Other than that, take it away.
Yes, I will. So, the question that we're examining here, our first topic, I am trying to add keywords so that we'll be able to put in chapter breaks more easily. So, our first topic is that is R.J. Smith and the Sin Sifters competent and responsible researchers? That is the question that we are looking at. And the picture we are looking at here is a picture from 1315, which Mel spent an entire live stream, possibly multiple, examining and speculating on its hidden meanings, the indications of the different heights of the people, the lines that he drew between their eyes and various other things, and their vaguely Asiatic looks because it was made in a Central Asian context, as hints for the true origins of Islam in the 7th century. So he is going to an art piece in the 14th century for hidden evidence of the true origins of Islam in the 7th century.
Now, call me crazy.
And so,
call me crazy, but
yes.
A 14th century document would not be the greatest of sources for something that happened in the 7th century. A painting
Well, I mean,
of any
if it
time,
has, yeah, if it is not a copy of a previous document, if it's the original
right,
creation of this document without other sources, except
right,
for things that you've heard.
yeah. The recency is overblown in the average person's mind as to how important it is. But if it was a document, we could probably consider it. But a painting is an artistic rendition of something. To assume that the painter has some special knowledge that he's conveying is
that is not in
I'm
the
trying
written
to
sources.
right. I'm going to try to put this as kindly as possible. Is strange. It's a strange methodology to use to determine that a painter who could be taking all kinds of artistic liberties, or maybe just not even trying to represent anything other than a general idea, to take them as some kind of great source of information about history is very bizarre. Like outside of the context of art, right? Obviously, a painting can tell you a lot about how art styles developed,
right.
But as far as like, the historical facts, not a great source for sure.
So this is like taking a 19th century painting from the pre-Raphaelites of a medieval scene and talking about how it contains hidden information, otherwise unaccessible and unrecorded, that tells you the truth about that medieval event. That is a level. And Mel is someone that Jay Smith considers one of his best and most informed researchers, who has the best methodologies. And this is the level that is considered research. What is not research is looking at any Islamic source that was, and as if it says what it says, and evaluating it as to whether or not, what's true, what's not, et cetera. So no. This is valid enough to do several live streams on. So you have to have the mentality where you will look at a painting from 1315 to tell you about what happened in 600. And that is a potentially fruitful line of exploration. Mm-hmm. If you do not believe that this can be fruitful at all, then you will have problems with most of their methodology. Oh my goodness, sweetheart, Dr. Kufophobia.
No. He's not saying.
No, he said
Mongolian. I don't think he's saying this is a serious
no, he said it did start in China.
No, this is okay, but this is clearly a joke.
The Chinese,
right? Muhammad ibn Khan II, Genghis Khan, basically.
Oh, maybe. I hope
it's a joke. It's a joke. He's saying based on this painting,
okay,
they're Mongolian, so they were started by Muhammad Khan instead of Genghis Khan.
Okay, I hope so. Sometimes I'm afraid because, again, Mel has seriously argued that Islam started in China. So go ahead and play the first one, please. Or the one that starts with this extension.
Yeah. The one that you told me to play first, even though it's second in the...
Yes, correct.
Yes, okay.
And this is really important, guys. And it ties into the first picture.
Whoops. That's not the right one.
Okay, a second.
Give me 1 second. I hadn't shared it yet. So interact with the chat or something. All right, I got it shared there. Let's make sure the audio can be heard. Let me add it to the scene. All right. So this is Jay.
It's a tiny one.
It didn't.
You added it as an extra little thing. Now they're all.
Oh yeah, because your presentation is also there. I have to take yours off for it. We'll treat them both as tiny. All right, sorry about that. So this is from Mel and Jay's video called 30 Muhammad, or Mel and Jay confront 37th century Muhammads. The first thing they look at is the first thing that Mary talked about, which was the coins. So couple seconds here. Mel will explain why he thinks the coin is important, and then Jay, it's only 49 seconds. We'll probably just let it play through and then comment on it.
Big standout is the fact that you find Mahmed on the coins, but also crosses, plenitude of crosses. And that doesn't tally with the standard Islamic narrative. You can have one or the other, but not the two together, because they're mutually exclusive.
The comeback has been, and what Muslims have said is, not a problem that there are crosses there, because there were so many Christians in the kingdom. And if Muawiyah had taken off the crosses, because they've always been there with the earlier Byzantine coins, which is interesting because the Byzantine coins don't have meant holding crosses, having a cross above their head on either hand. They just have them holding an orb with the cross on it. Much more subtle. Whereas the ones Muawiyah has are not subtle at all. They're on his head, there's on this hand, and in this hand, and on the back side there's another cross above the M.
All right, so that's the argument that apparently two coins are not subtle. They have great amount, giant crosses.
Okay. Well, let's try. Hang on. It's the Muslim argument.
Yeah.
That they didn't take the crosses off the coin because the Christians would be very upset. It's a Muslim argument that they didn't dare to do it, that they wanted to, but they didn't. That is a Muslim argument. I want you guys to
Yeah. So I can replay
Smith,
that if you want. I can replay it.
Yeah,
if you want.
replay that little portion. I want to hear it again. Whose argument is this, everyone? Listen carefully.
This is a. Let me get where Jay starts talking. Right about here.
There, because there were so many Christians in the kingdom.
All right.
The comeback has been, and what Muslims have said is, not a
Who
problem
said this?
there are crosses there because there were so many Christians in the kingdom.
Muslims have said this. Now, he also said at the start of the video that no Muslims have responded to him. So I'm actually very confused here. What he means exactly, that Muslims are making this argument. I had never heard this argument until Mary brought it in the debate with Robert Spencer.
Well, clearly I'm a Muslim. I'm a Muslim, and so are the people whom I was quoting.
Right. So there's two possibilities, right? It's somewhat ambiguous. He could be talking about people bringing the argument today, or he could be talking about the original documents. But either way, he's saying it's from Muslims. So either the document that wrote this is made by Muslims, or the people bringing the argument today are Muslims. But either way, this is a Muslim argument. That is the claim here. I'll just point out before Mary blows that out of the water that even if it was a Muslim argument, that doesn't automatically make it false.
Yep.
So it's not even a response.
So Jay is telling you a story. He's telling you a story that this is a subtle coin that barely has any crosses on it at all. He had one with 3 emperors. By the way, the emperors do all have crosses on their heads. Jay just got a really low resolution one where you can't really see it. They have crosses and crosses on their heads.
He acknowledged that. Just to be clear, he said that the crosses are. He said there's crosses, but he says they're not.
No, he says
prominent.
no. He said explicitly they only have crosses in their hands and not on their heads. He said that explicitly.
Oh, well, you just said hands. So
no, I just said that they. Hang on one second. They have crosses on both their hands and their heads. Jay Smith just chose one that was so small, that the resolution was so poor that you couldn't see that every single one of those 3 figures had a cross on the crown on his head as well as on the orb in his hand.
Yeah, so I think you misspoke. It's no big deal. Let me just bring Jay's image back up, though, since Mary is referencing it. As you can see, this is not the highest quality image by any means.
But those little bumpy things on their heads,
you can clearly
make out.
Yeah, you can clearly make out the crosses on their hands. But these are also crosses on their head. And you can kind of tell this one, right? You can kind of tell this one. But the other two, you definitely can't tell at all in the image. Now, and then on the reverse side, there's also a cross here.
Okay, here's the subtle cross that you barely notice as compared to everything else.
Right.
Look, and go back to mine. This is Heraclius's true cross coin commemorating the triumphant return of the true cross to Constantinople after being seized by the Persians. The cross on the steps. This is just the cross. This is what Jay says
pretty big.
Too subtle.
Oh wait, that's
A
the reverse.
cross.
Hold on. Hold on.
Yes.
I just realized that that's what's on the reverse side of this coin as well.
Yeah. There are a whole bunch of true cross coins. And he took one of the true cross coins that has, I just grabbed this one because it was the first true cross coin.
Oh, well, I mean, that's
because
a much clearer image for sure.
Yes, because I am, educated on these coins now because I bothered to look into it. I knew that this was called a true cross coin of Heraclius, and that it was for commemorating getting the true cross back from the Persians. And from this event forward, for a long time, this is what the Christians would have on their coins. It was a very momentous occasion, the retrieval of the true cross, huge, momentous, incredible occasion. And this coin design was specially struck to commemorate it, where the cross is the figure on steps to elevate it. And because J. Smith needs to tell a story, he is telling us that this is a subtle cross that isn't nearly as prominent and important as the other cross.
Yeah, so take a good look at the reverse side. Obviously, the front side has changed between these two coins, which is normal, right? Coins are changing all the time.
Yes.
Take a look at the reverse side of the one on screen right now. Keep it in your mind. Here's J's again. You can see the stairs are slightly different. Right? I think that one had one more stair. Maybe they're slightly wider. But it's clearly, now knowing this, it's clearly the same idea being conveyed here, right? There's stairs. There's a cross at the top. I didn't actually realize this was a cross at the top.
Yeah, because it's so fuzzy.
Right. This is the same word that's on the other one.
Yeah,
this is the same word that's on the other one. This cross here has been added.
Now, all it says is victory of the Augustus at the bottom. That's the stamp for the mint in Constantinople. And then there's a year on there somewhere, but it's so fuzzy I can't make it out.
But I mean, so like, this might be the year, right? Whatever portion.
Well, but no, that first bit is the abbreviation for victory. It's that gloopy bit over to the left. That is, no, it's right fully Victoria, Augusta, and maybe the years over there. That little weird thing in between the outside and the central figure might.
Oh, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. The point being that Augustus, this is the same basic design with slight modifications of the other coin, where the cross is the most important feature, right? It's the most important feature of the coin, hence why in coin collecting it's called the true cross coin. Obviously, it wasn't technically called that at the time.
No, it was called.
Oh, they even called it that themselves.
Yeah, like it's the True Cross commemoration, and people who came to who visited Constantinople, or not Constantinople, Jerusalem around this time would get tokens that aren't quite the same. Like it didn't have the king on the other side. It had something else that were almost identical, that were their True Cross tokens. They called this the True Cross. This is a True Cross. It's the True Cross coin. Everybody knew this was the True Cross coin. It was a big deal. So, and this coin goes for a lot of money.
Just before you go on. Yeah, call 1-800 number to buy your coin. But in any case, Dr. Kufar did say that he has heard Muslims make this argument, and I can see that as definitely a possibility that modern Muslims may have also made the argument. However, they're responding to Mary's stream, said that no Muslims respond to these, and then say this is the Muslim argument. It's not a good look. I'm not saying that he was actually calling Mary a Muslim, but it's not a good look for sure. Any case, I just wanted to get that on the record that Muslims may have made the same argument, which of course doesn't invalidate the argument. If it's a valid argument, it's a valid argument. It doesn't matter who brings it.
Yep. Now, let's look at the actual, could be the actual same denomination, because he jumped over to this other one because he wanted to make it seem different, and then he gave you a really fuzzy one, and ironically went to one that featured the True Cross, huge, but it was fuzzy, so it was easy.
Yeah, well, I don't think there was anything ill-intended.
I think he chose deliberately. Image. Well, he had a choice between many different coins. He could have chosen any coin. He could have chosen the same denomination to compare. So here is an actual 40 nummus of Hercules, or Heraclius, which has 3 figures. That would be Heraclius and then the 2 sons. with, oh, look at all these crosses. They each have a cross on their heads, very obviously in this one. They each have a cross on the orb on their hands, and then there are two staves kind of shoved between them with crosses on them.
Mm-hmm.
They have the full cross kit. And then you have the reverse side, which just had anno for year, and then somewhere on it would have the actual year. It's unreadable here. And at the bottom, it would have the mint that's worn off. And then there's an M, and a cross above it is a little cross too. Now, let's look at this totally different, radically more emphasizing cross of Muqawiyah. So what do we have here? Do the crosses look that much like crosses at this point? Let's look at the orb. Does the orb even have a cross on it anymore? The orb, there he has a staff, orb,
yeah.
and thing. The
So
orb has no cross.
It might be too small for people to see. I can't make any guarantees what people are able to see.
I can guarantee.
Hold on one second. Let me adjust this. It's zoomed in at the wrong portion. I do have a zoom thing, but I have to manually adjust it. So give me 1 second here.
Now notice that the fact that this comes from Muqawiyah, that's Jay Smith's story. But whether or not you can zoom in, the little orb has no cross. The thing to the left is not a cross. And then the shape is kind of deformed on the other crosses. They're like, well, they're cross-like. We're going to try to get them. So the orb in his hand, no cross. The thing on the left, that's not a cross. The thing on his, technically a cross. Technically a cross in his hand.
Yeah, those are crosses.
Yeah, but notice that they're not as well shaped. And then you have a more less floppy cross actually on the end.
And then just give me 1
clearly,
second here, Mary. Let me go back
Yep.
up to the top so people can see a bigger image of the first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 crosses on the front by my count.
8. You're
8?
missing one of the staves. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
So
8 there. Clearly, this is right. Clearly, these coins are related.
Yep.
They both have the M. You know, they both have the same kind of image on the front side, and one of these has way more Christian imagery than the other.
And this one has 2, and then they each have 1 cross. But Jay Smith says this is unusually declaration of Christianity here that departs from previous tradition. Even it's more Christian than the Christian coins. This is storytelling. He's claiming it's more Christian than the Christian coins. It's just not true. And then he says the name Muhammad there, they would never accept that. If they're going to rebel, if they're going to revolt, if they're going to not accept anything, they won't accept that his name Muhammad here. Now, at this time, there were a bunch of coins made that had like absolute nonsense pseudo writing on them. They didn't have real letters on them. Instead, they had like this pseudo kind of fakey writing to begin with. And people were using that. How many people would know it's Muhammad's name? But more than that, do you know what Muhammad's name replaces? Does it replace a Christian something or other? It replaces the name of the mint. The older coins, that's where you had the name of the mint. On the side with the M, on the bottom, that's the name of the mint. Just like over here, this is Constantinople's abbreviation here. At the bottom of the verse, you have the name of the mint. Muhammad's name did not replace any Christian signification. It's just replacing the mint there. But there's a bigger problem.
Well, now Mel, and I believe Jay as well, but Mel, I know for sure, they're going to claim that this is Jesus, that they put Muhammad on there to mean Jesus. Now, why they didn't just put Jesus on there, I'm not quite sure. Nor are there any other coins that have Jesus's name in that position.
And that was going to be my question. Does any coin in the history of the Roman Empire have the name Jesus or a title like Messiah? You know, Christ. Does it have Christ? Does it have that? Does it have that in this position on the rear side? Is that anything that anyone would expect it to have? No. But there's a further point.
Let me just take this real quick, Mary, while you're paused. Edwin says, can anyone tell me Dr. J. Smith's official channel or website? I linked to the video that we're reviewing. Go ahead and click on that and you can get to it. He tuned in this video because he thought it was J. Smith talking. Obviously,
So,
J. Smith's not talking.
Edwin, Ricardo, I really recommend that you stay here because J. Smith
Yeah,
is
you
telling
should
you
probably stay here,
stories
though.
that are not true. These are stories that are not true. You should stick around because guess what?
Mhm.
I went to a definitive entire book by a scholar named Foss that has Arab Byzantine coins. So the coins that have Byzantine type shapes and designs from the conquest of the Arabs onward. He is a specialist in this area. And he said this lower type is almost all before 658, before Muqawiyah became crowned, because they are before his monetary reforms, which lightened the currency. Because of how heavy they are, you can tell when they are made. And so of the ones, he doesn't say blanket because he hasn't seen every single one and handled it to be able to tell. But he said that a majority are from this earlier date. So this is not an introduction of Muqawiyah. But because we have this storytelling of this reaching this Christian state and then turning her back from this Christian, open Christian declaration, we need this story.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not even representing what caliph, official caliph, because this is the Caliphate of Ali or earlier, who this is actually minted under and under whose power officially.
Right. Well, I mean, as far as Jay's concerned, well, I'm not sure about Ali specifically, but certainly no one before Ali actually existed as a historical figure. Dr. Kufarovobia says Arabic has no vowels. It would only be MHMD or MHMT, which is actually a very good point, because one of the arguments that I don't remember if it's Mel or Jay brings, but, or not really an argument, but just a statement as in the introduction, saying it doesn't say Muhammad, it says Mahmed. Okay, but there's no other way to write Muhammad other than
right. How else would you write it?
it?
What is your evidence that it must say Mahmed? What's your evidence? All right. So
one other thing I wanted that is a legitimate question from Una. Why are they using Latin script on their coins? I assume you mean the giant M. What is the purpose of the giant M, Mary?
The M is means 40. It's the marker for the Numis 40 coin. Well, it doesn't like literally mean 40, but it's the marker for the Numis
so
coin.
It's the denomination.
The denomination of the coin. And they continued to use Latin for a long time. A lot of the Latin kind of turned into nonsense, but even pagans over in Europe would mint coins that like had pseudo-Latin on them or tried to have the Latin inscriptions because they looked authoritative. They looked like something you could trust. Latin letters on coins was felt to be trustworthy by a lot of people. Look over on the left of the M. There's just these weird little squiggly shapes on the bottom one. They're not letters. They're just attempts at something sort of like a letter, so you feel like it's a real coin.
So I had a couple comments about the volume. One said that we are both too low, which I'm paying attention to the audio levels. It appears to be correct to me that it's not quite peaking, which is where you'd want it to be, generally speaking. And then this one said that Mary seems quiet, but Mary does seem to be the same volume to me. So maybe if more people can have feedback on the audio, visually it looks fine, but obviously I can't hear it. So if one or both of us need adjusted, let me know.
Yep, let us know. All right. So Anastasius of Sinai is a Muslim. A Muslim's mistyped, according to J. Smith. So J. Smith says that this dude here, here's a picture of him. This is a Muslim, everyone, because Muslims make this argument. So he is dialoguing with Jews and saying that even though many nations have fought against the empire, those nations have been unable to eliminate his picture with the cross from the gold currency, even though some tyrants attempted it. So he tried to get rid of his picture and the gold cross both, and they were unable to do it. Why were they unable to do it? Because the people wouldn't accept the money. And he's attributing this to God. God has given them the strength that whenever a person tries to do this, no one can. So this is a Muslim making a Muslim argument in the 6th century, according to J. Smith.
So KMC says, "Holy cow! I watched his video yesterday. I think we're watching
Listen
two different
again.
videos. You're ascribing arguments to J. Smith he never made. A lot of straw man.
All right, let's pull it up.
I mean, we can replay the clip if you want.
Replay the audio. Who is it who makes the argument that they didn't change the coins even though they wanted to because of the Christians? Let's play it again. Let's see what he says.
And to be clear, we're not addressing the vast majority of it. 99% of his claims. We're only addressing this one specific claim. So at most, there's one straw man.
Big standout is the fact that you find Mahmed on the coins, but also crosses, plentitude of crosses. And that doesn't tally with the standard Islamic narrative. You can have one or the other, but not the two together, because they're mutually exclusive.
The comeback has been, and what Muslims have said is,
wait, who said that?
There are crosses there.
Muslims have said this.
Muslims have said. It's Muslims who say this.
But let's hear the rest of it as well.
Because there were so many Christians in the kingdom. And if Muawiyah had taken off the crosses, because they've always been there with the earlier Byzantine coins, which is interesting because the Byzantine coins don't have men holding crosses, having a cross above their head on either hand. They just have them holding an orb with the cross on it.
So notice they do not have men holding crosses.
Correct.
Do not have men holding crosses. Look at mine again.
He said that. He said so. I don't know why he said that, because then he contradicts himself. He says they don't have men holding crosses or crosses above their head. They have men holding orbs that have crosses on them, which I don't know why he's calling these orbs. They just look like crosses to me. So I think he is saying they're holding crosses. But either way.
In that one, they actually are holding orbs. It's too hard to see. The orb is a symbol of the world, and the cross on the top is that the king is the ruler of the world under the authority of God, who is the ruler over everything.
All right. So in any case, he says they don't have crosses in their hand, but then he says they do have crosses in their hand, just indirectly, whatever. But his point is that this coin, it doesn't have nearly as clear Christian imagery as the other, and that's what we were addressing, right? So the other one, this supposedly has very clear Christian imagery. This supposedly doesn't. And then I don't know why he brings this coin up. This isn't the same coin.
This is another one. No, it's a different one that actually is not as deformed.
Right.
But this one is an imitation of exact coin of yet another Namus of Heraclius. So let's do Heraclius Namus. And
this one doesn't have Muhammad on it, right? So this is supposedly
Muhammad.
Muawiyah without Muhammad, Muawiyah with Muhammad, typical Byzantine coin. That's the claim of J. Smith. And that was the claim we were addressing, combined with his claim that says that Muslims are the ones disputing his claims about the coins.
But,
so
the fact
tell me what the straw man is. Tell me what his actual argument is if I've gotten it wrong. What does this have to do with his argument? This is his argument.
That is his argument, hon. That's his argument that he's making here. That we should see this as more Christian, because the cross is slightly different than in the one that he has cherry-picked, to be clear.
And so Dr. Kufarophobia says, I think he's referring to the coins by Malik. Well, I don't know what he's referring to, because his slide says Muawiyah's coin with cross is 663. Muawiyah's 663 AD coin. So,
and he does say Muawiyah in other places. I mean, he did right then. He just said that.
Oh, he didn't say Malik. Now, he could be mistaken and be thinking of a coin of Malik. That's a possibility. But both his slides, both his slides and his words, say Muawiyah.
And it's Muawiyah that he says is a super Christian, not Abdul Malik. So you're messing up his argument. But yeah, he has cherry picked this one to be, and this is This is an imitation of a specific Roman coin. So saying that it's more Christian than a specific Roman coin is just bizarre and ridiculous.
Yeah, so KMC, if you think I haven't accurately represented his argument, then tell me what his argument is, please. Because as near as I can tell, we've accurately represented his argument. Jay says that the coin with Muhammad on it has clearer Christian imagery than the typical Byzantine coin, which is not true.
All right, so if you can bring up my slide again. Well,
Don't
you can
call
consider
KMC
rude.
Hun anymore, Mary. Let's be
Right.
polite here. Let's be better people than
Well, I'll
Mel
remove
calling
my
everyone names. Okay.
I'll remove my southern reflexes. All
It
right.
wasn't intended as an insult, but you took offense. No problem. We won't say it again. But please, tell me what Jay's argument is. I want to understand his argument. If I'm misunderstanding it, I'm not intentionally misrepresenting it. So if you think he has a better argument, please let me know what that argument is.
Please fix his argument for him so that we understand what he actually meant when he says that Muslims make this argument. When it's a Christian who said this, they want to eliminate it, they were unable. Papsicus, do not have a picture of him, but he is another Christian. And according to Jay Smith, he is a Muslim because he says, how was no one able to abolish or take from us the seal of gold? So what do they want to do? They want to abolish or take from us the seal of gold. How many kings of the Gentiles, Persians, and Arabs attempted and were in no way able? So what do the kings of the Arabs want to do that are now ruling? And the Persians, when they briefly ruled Jerusalem, they wanted to take the seal of gold. Why? Because what does it have on it? It has the cross. It had a cross before. It had Christian symbols before. The true cross was brought in after the recapture from Persia. It has the singular true cross after this. Thus, God wished to show that even if all the Christians are persecuted, we reign over all. So we still determine they cannot give us whatever we want, whatever they want. We affect them and do not take from them what they want to give us. Tell me if it is not a sign that the faith and the empire of the Christians is eternal, invincible, and indelible. How is it that all of you who hate and blaspheme the cross of Christ have fallen away? So who is concluded in those who hate and blaspheme the cross of Christ?
The Arab rulers.
And is having a cross on the coinage any indication, according to this Christian, that they do not hate and blaspheme the cross?
No, he doesn't seem to think that that's what it indicates.
Okay, so he says, how are you unable to remove the cross of gold? He's talking to a Jew, so he's talking to Jews together, Persians and Arabs and other Gentiles. And he means Gentile as in pagan, but even readily receive it, meaning that you spend it and you get it for tax money and you have to deal with this money that has a cross on it that you love.
No, that you hate, right? It's a flex.
Now, do keep in mind that Jay Smith is saying, and now you are peeking, just so you know. Jay Smith.
Oh, what the heck? Somehow it got turned up to 800%. Yeah, that was probably terrible there. I don't know how that happened.
Cat probably did it. All right. So what is being said here is that these Christians are testifying that the rulers hate the cross, but are obligated to put it on anyway because the Christians will not accept any other coin and the rulers have to bow to that, even though they love the cross. Mel says they do. Jay says they do. But do they?
Not according to the actual contemporary sources that actually explain why the coins look the way they look. So this is a flex, right? He's saying that because you are in a false religion, because Christians have the true religion, God will not allow you to remove the crosses from the coin, even though you desperately want to. You tried, you failed, ha, ha, ha. But somehow this is just an apologetic argument made by Muslims with no historical basis or something.
Exactly. So I want to emphasize again, I have this in my stream. This is part of what I am quite confident that Mel saw. Mel knows this source. If he doesn't, how poor of a researcher is he? How poor of a historian is he that he's walking around telling everyone that the only reason they would have the crosses on there is if they agreed with them? When this source has been here all along, very easy to find. I want to emphasize again, Jay Smith and Mel are sitting together calling these people liars or Muslims, one or the other, because Jay Smith and Mel have a story and they have feelings about what people would or wouldn't like. And they're saying that this is untrue.
Yep.
These eyewitness testimony, firsthand accounts and arguments, these Christians are fools or liars or Muslims in disguise. That is what they are saying. And they will not bring these sources.
Okay, so again, I'm going to try to be as fair as possible here. They said they didn't watch our video. So
yet
and they
coincidentally, they brought
and
up
they
the
don't
exact
respond,
same point
right?
first.
And they don't respond to that specific source that you brought. They
How
just
could
say
they?
that it's a Muslim argument. Well, I don't think they could. I mean, I don't know what their response would be, honestly.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, what are they going to say? That it was written
and that's why
500 years later and the Christian was imagining the past? I mean, I don't know. I really don't know what argument they could bring.
And the Christian wrote this to make themselves look bad because they would remove the cross very soon after this, just to be clear. So a Christian fabricated that to make himself look bad, or some Muslim fabricated, whatever. I am pretty confident that Mel saw this and just threw it out of his brain because he will not accept what this says because he likes his stories. He made up a story. This disagrees with his story. When facts disagree with your stories, when evidence disagrees with your stories, if you are Jay Smith and Mel, you go with the story and you throw out the fact. And this is their pattern. They are storytellers.
Yeah. See, so I didn't know about this source before, and you know, maybe it was already being used by Muslims. I don't know, right? Dr. Kufara said they at least are familiar with the argument. Maybe they brought the source, maybe they didn't. I personally had not heard anyone bring this source before. But what I had done is I'd gone and looked at the coins from the 1st century of Islam. Jay, he doesn't make a claim in this video, but elsewhere he likes to claim this is the only coin from early Islamic history. And this only coin that has Muhammad on it, it also has all the crosses. So you see early Muslims must be Christians, in fact. And then from there, maybe you speculate that Muhammad means Jesus or whatever. But in fact, there are dozens and dozens of coins from the 1st century of Islam. Many of them don't have any explicit Islamic writing on it, but they also don't have crosses on it, right? They're just coins that don't have crosses or Islamic symbols. Others do have Islamic symbols of various types. There's a couple versions that have different variants of the Bismillah. There is, I believe, I'm going off the top of my head, but I believe that there's one coin that bears one of the names of the rightly guided caliphs. There are coins that have other Islamic symbolism on it. So we have one coin that has crosses that need an explanation, and we have a very plausible explanation in contemporary sources. And we have lots of coins that don't have that. Jay only talks about the one coin that fits his narrative, ignores the rest of the coins, and ignores the source explaining why there's crosses on that coin. He's weaved a very compelling story. Unfortunately, the story doesn't account for the facts.
And he also says that the Maronites are Muslims because in 660, the Maronite Chronicle says Muawiyah also minted gold and silver, but it was not accepted because there was no cross on it. Not accepted because there was no cross on it. So he briefly minted something that he later no longer minted because it wasn't accepted. And we do have a cache that has gold coins in which the cross piece was removed in Muawiyah's day before Abdul Malik did the same.
So let me address this from
so we have
and then I want to address
evidence
another
of
comment.
this.
Yep, I want to address this from Karika, and then one other comment. That is, you wonder why it's too convenient. There's no coinage from Abu Bakr and Uthman at all.
Why would there be coinage from Abu Bakr?
Yeah, I was
Had
going
they
to ask you, how
conquered-
long did Abu Bakr reign for?
Had they conquered any area that minted coinage yet? Was there a place that minted coins that they had conquered yet? Now, there is coinage of Uthman and Umar. There is. They're coinage from their time period. Very clear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's coins from that time period. And just so you know, the vast majority of coins in world history don't bear the name of the current king. Some do. It happens, but the vast majority don't. Right? None of the coins we looked at today bear the name of the current ruler, for example.
If you're looking at all kingdoms in the world, that's absolutely true. Like, a lot of kingdoms used other people's coins. The Arabs had no kings and they had no coins of their own. So why would they have suddenly started minting coinage whenever they never had before? So again, these are all from before Muqawiyah, where all of these have all of the crosses mutilated at various times, where they tried to get rid of the cross and it never took. So this standing military figure kind of has a cross, and it's kind of hard to say, but it's a de-emphasized cross. They de-emphasize the cross in the top one, and then you have a de-Christianized type from before Muqawiyah, when before him they were taking off the crosses or distorting them into other figures. This is a type of early Islamic coin. They are not really sure exactly when it's from, but it's from before him. Okay. So
I did want to address one other comment real quick, because I suspect he won't stay around very long. He might have already left, in fact. I kind of think this might be a joke because it's so ridiculous. I don't know. Jay Smith is great, exclamation points. Bullshit. You can't handle the truth. So this is the level. It's so ridiculous. I think it might be a joke. I'm not quite sure. But if this is actually a serious comment, I'm just kind of baffled as to how to respond to someone who is just hears something that is disagreeing with Jay on something, and then has this kind of over the top emotional response saying that we're rejecting the truth because we're presenting sources that disagree with Jay's argument and making carefully well-reasoned arguments. Again, I don't know if it's a joke or what, but please try to have some decency. Please try to actually evaluate arguments instead of just saying someone I like said it, therefore it must be true.
Yep. I mean, he's very likable. He's very charming. And that's
I like
problem.
Jay. Again, I like Jay. He's very pleasant to listen.
Charismatic.
Yeah, he's very charismatic. He's very pleasant to listen to. And historically, he made some very great arguments against Islam, but the historical critique isn't one of those. And that's all he wants to talk about these days.
Yep. So again, notice most of them are relatively heavy, suggesting an issue of 647 to 658. This is a direct quote from Foss about this type that has Muhammad's name on it. It's a Muhammad type coin before Muqawiyah. Okay. Now here are some that are actually from the time of Muqawiyah and that have the mutilated cross, and it has the top of the cross chopped off, and the orbs just have little sticks on them. They turn the orbs into sticks, or the top lopped off, and that is from the period when he had just crowned himself. And notice the gold issue 660, because they think that Muqawiyah actually crowned himself before Ali died as well, just like the Maronite Chronicle says. But there you go. Here they are. I don't know whether or not we have any silver that can be positively identified in this way, but here's some gold. It was found in a singular cache. It wasn't minted for very long, so we don't have very many examples. Now, here is another Muslim, a Coptic Muslim, according to Jay Smith, that this horrible, it's a pseudo-apocalypse, so it's attributed to somebody else. And this is how they wrote historical fiction back then. They wrote a fake prophecy and then set it in the past. And the name of this evil nation, like locusts, is Saracen, which means what? Muslim. Anyway, or Arab. It means Arab.
Arab.
It's the same as Arab. Saracen is Arab.
Yeah, and
Arabs
we'll
are
get a
Saracens.
chance to
It's
talk more about
interchangeable.
that when we review the video,
Later.
because Jay spends quite a long time arguing that Saracen means something completely different. But the
His
consensus
feelings.
of linguistics and scholars is that
Yes.
Saracen is a term for Arab.
Anyway, first, that nation will destroy the gold on which there is the image of the cross of the Lord our God, in order to make all the countries under its rule mint their own gold with the name of the beast written on it, the number of whose name is 666. Now, when they took off the cross, they added the Bismillah. And so either Muhammad or Allah is the beast, according to this. So this is, if Muhammad had been a name of Jesus just a few years before, would it be associated with the name of the beast?
It's a very interesting claim. Like, I mean, we got several very specific challenges here, right? So challenge 1, actually address all of the coin data. Challenge 2, address like the physical coins, I mean. Challenge 2, address what the Christian sources are saying about the reason why there's crosses on their coins. And challenge 3, give me any source, any Christian document ever that isn't a single sentence, and thus you could just claim it means anything you want, that describes Jesus as Muhammad, as the praised one, the one who praises, whatever, right? Give me any Christian source that uses this term for Jesus from the 2nd century, 3rd century, 4th century, 5th century, 6th century, 7th century, 8th century, whatever, right? And you can't bring an Islamic document and say it's really a Christian document. Give me an unambiguous Christian document that uses this title for Jesus.
And again, whether or not it's Muhammad or Mahmed, that is what is written on the coin.
Yep.
That word is what is the name of the beast in this. The name of the beast. So my next topic is specifically.
So somehow we went. Tell me the exact number of years, but somehow we went from like 660 coins praising Muhammad as a title for Jesus to 690 Christians saying that Muhammad is the name of the beast.
Yep. According to Jay Smith, that's what happened. Although, this is probably a Muslim too, because this would be a Muslim argument. So the neighbor, if the argument comes from the words of original people, of living people.
I allowed that his statement is ambiguous, but he needs to actually address the source.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that he's addressing the source, in which case he's calling it a Muslim source. If he's ignoring the source, then he needs to actually address the source, because that is what Mary's actual argument is. So if you're taking a response to Mary's argument, you need to address the sources she brings.
Yep. You have to address the sources and what they said and how they absolutely obliterate the arguments of Jay Smith and Mel. Jay Smith and Mel have stories that they like so much about these coins. That's all they are. They're just stories. Whereas what we bring is documentary evidence from the appropriate century that interprets it for them and that tells them what it means. And they say these are wrong or lying or foolish or deluded because their stories are better than this, according to them.
Yep.
My next topic is on how Jay Smith and Mel explicitly frame their stream. This stream was organized by Mel in response to my stream going through the sources, and Jay Smith chose the title, Mel and Jay Confront and Respond to 30 Erroneous Mohammeds in the 7th century. So the first one that is erroneous is the one on the coin, which I don't know why, that was not something that was brought up, but the coinage was brought up. So they're bringing forth this Mahmed that they're saying is Jesus, and they're saying that the people who are testifying about this are not telling the truth. They are. So this is
Mr.
even this title.
Mr. Strawman intervening here, since I am apparently a strawman. Mel clarified that his position is that maybe these people were actually named Muhammad. Okay. Um, I'm not sure how that's a clarification exactly, but if they're erroneous Mohammeds, as Jay chose to say, and what Jay definitely always says, right? I'm not strawmanning Jay at all, is that all of these early Mohammeds are references to Jesus. So
Well, they also say, no, he'll say simultaneously, they're references to Jesus, except when they're killing people, and then they're references to random warlords because everybody's a Messiah
yeah,
and
okay, fair
everybody's
enough,
named
fair enough,
Muhammad.
fair enough.
And so there are
I meant all
30
the
different
Islamic
people.
sources.
Now, do keep
Sorry.
in mind that
I should have
Jay
clarified.
Smith says that everyone's a Messiah and everyone's called Muhammad. But you know what? On that coin, that's definitely Jesus. It's not one of these violent Mohammeds, Mahmeds. This one's Jesus. Trust me, bro. I'm going to argue both at once because
that
like
is a bit
this story
ironic,
for this
isn't it?
and that story for that. This one's definitely about Jesus just because there's a cross on it.
That is a bit ironic to acknowledge that there was violent warlords conquering land named Muhammad who were not Muslims, right? They're just named Muhammad. And thus it would be perfectly reasonable for them to put their own name on their coin without changing the imagery of the coin. But somehow this is also evidence that the coin is really talking about Jesus. I hope people are getting this here, right? That it's a different story, it's a different explanation for whatever you want it to be, right? I have no problem saying that this Muhammad is the same as all the Muhammads in the sources, that it's talking about the founder of what we now call Islam. However, Jay, right, will say this one is Jesus, this one is some random warlord, this one is a later interpolation into the text. It didn't originally have a name in it.
Yeah.
You know, he'll say whatever he thinks he needs to say at the time to make them all invalid. And like I said, you can do that, right? It's a logical possibility that 30 different sources have 30 different explanations as to how they all came to either describe the activities of Muhammad, use his name, or both. But that's not a responsible way to handle history, right? This is exactly what atheist Jesus mythers do. They go to the various sources, and there aren't 30 of them, by the way. There's less than 30, but they go to the various sources about Jesus, and they dismiss them for one reason or another. Obviously, the ones written by Christians are dismissed simply because they're Christians. And then they'll go to Tacitus, and they'll explain it away one way. And then they'll go to Pliny, and they'll explain it away a different way. And they'll go to Josephus, and they'll explain it away a different way. And Suetonius doesn't actually use Jesus' name, but it has correspondence to his story. They'll explain that away in yet a different way. And then the first century letter written from a father to his son saying, don't be like Jesus because he was killed. Be, a different kind of person. Don't be a philosopher who brings unpopular ideas. Oh, they'll explain that away a different way, right? All the sources they'll take and they'll explain away one way or another. None of them match each other. They all have different explanations for how they came to be, and they have no problem with that. And that is, in fact, the same technique that Jay is using. I'm not saying the cases are identical. They're not. But it is the same technique that he is using. You can use this technique to reject absolutely anything. I could use this technique to reject that William Shakespeare existed. I could use it to reject Alexander the Great existing. I could use it to reject absolutely anything I want from history, right? Anything that's brought, you just come up with an explanation and you throw it out.
Okay.
Una has a request that people are asking me to bring up. If we have time, can you share your opinions on emerging church movement? Sure.
I don't like the emergent church movement at all. It is theology light without theology.
If we have time at the end. I don't want to get off topic. Go ahead, Mary. Back to the presentation.
Let's go ahead and play the next clip, please.
Yep, we'll do that. Give me 1 sec. I should have probably brought it up and had it ready to go, but that would have taken foresight. It was time for that. Us losers doing 5 hours live streams, we don't have time to have the foresight to bring sources up before. All right, so this is from the start of the video. So that one, we wanted to address that specific claim. This one is about where they explain what they're doing in their own words.
Here we are back again. One of my favorite friends, Mel, from across the ocean, across the pond. Mel, so good to see you again. Thanks for coming back on board. I've asked Mel to come specifically because there were finally getting some rebuttals. People are starting to rebut what we're saying, which is good. Now, unfortunately, not Muslims, it's other Christians who are rebutting us. Raymond Ibrahim is the one that I am actually engaging with, and it looks like we're going to be doing a debate on August the 21st, Thursday, August the 21st, as I recall. Not on the Quran and not on Mecca, the two easiest things for us as historians of the origins of Islam. Mel has a whole YouTube site called The Origins of Islam, and you've got to go on it. I'll put the URL right here down below us. And his whole area.
Not hiding anything here. If you want to check out Mel's arguments, check them out. If you want to check out Jay's arguments, check them out. But actually check them out. Don't just say, oh, he sounds good.
He said some things. He told a story. Don't believe stories. Check all sources.
Mm-hmm.
Check the source beyond the little pieces they want you to read. Check the entirety.
Is this narrative? How did Islam begin? And I've been doing this, Mel, since 1995. So I've been doing this for 30 years. So this is our bread and butter.
I actually thought that claim was really bizarre, right? Because you're challenging the existence of Muhammad, Raymond Ibrahim. Well, he doesn't mention you by name, but he mentions Ibrahim by name. Challenges him on the existence.
He's
of
not going to
Muhammad.
mention me by name because I've gone through all the sources explicitly. Raymond Ibrahim I think that's a big portion of it.
He may just not think that you're important. I don't know. It
sure
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why he didn't name you, right? That's not my point. But my point is, you're challenging on the historical Muhammad. Raymond Ibrahim is challenging on the historical Muhammad. What has Jay been saying for years and years and years and years? It's the book and it's the man, right?
The book, the place, and the man.
The book, the place, and the man. But mostly the book and the man, maybe the place as a
mostly the place in the man, or the place in the book, because his.
But sorry, not what he's talking about. His phrase is usually the book and the man. Islam is the book and the man. The book and the man.
No, he does all three. He does book, place, man. But that's
okay. Anyway, my point is, he's always been talking about the man, Muhammad. Right? It's not like something that we just brought up that was a minor secondary point. But he says, for some reason, they're not challenging us on the main ideas of the book and the place. Yeah, fine, Jay. Challenge has been laid. Let's have a formal debate on whether there was a 7th century Quran. He says those are the easy topics. No, they're not from your perspective. By far, the one that you can't answer at all is the 7th century Quran. Right? There is no possible way you're getting around that other than to deny every single date of the manuscripts that have been provided and all common sense as well.
Yeah, he does.
I know, but he's saying that that's an easy topic for him to show that the Quran didn't exist until the 8th century or 9th century, whatever his position is. And no, that's not easy at all for your position. We're challenging you on what, in my opinion, your best of your three arguments, that Muhammad is not well documented in historical sources. I think that's your best argument. Now, all three are bad, but I think that's probably your best. But whatever, you want to challenge us on a different one, fine. We'll address any of them.
All right. So if we can bring up the presentation again.
Yeah, just 1 second. Just 1 second, Cargo Crew. I want to address this. What do you expect Mel to do with his personal office? Well, I expect him not to say he's responding to things he hasn't watched. That would be my first standard. And then he says, if you can't finish your argument in a 10-minute video, you lost, Thaddeus. You have to give proof, not him. Well, first of all, that's not true. That is not true. There is no special burden of proof on someone claiming a person existed. This is not an exceptional claim in any way. Second of all, most of Mel's videos are far longer than 10 minutes. So apparently he can't finish an argument in 10 minutes. Therefore, he's refuted. But don't worry, I can easily finish an argument in 10 minutes. Again, the purpose of a live stream is to interact with people. If it's a specific argument on a specific point, don't worry. We got shorter than 10-minute videos coming up. The first one will be out next week, probably, on the coins argument, and it's less than 10 minutes. So don't worry. I can do it.
Oh, is it less than 10 minutes? I was hoping it'd be. It might be around
I think
10,
it's like 8
10,
something.
15. Oh,
Huh?
well, you still got to add in the clips though. So.
Oh, true.
Unless we're done
You're
that. So,
talking. Your argument
Yeah.
is less than 10 minutes, but maybe with
Correct.
the clips of Jay for context,
Yeah.
it might be over 10 minutes.
correct. All right.
But forgive me. I already answered you, Dr. Kufarophobia. There's almost certainly no Quran manuscript that exactly matches the 1924 edition, just like there's no biblical manuscript that matches Textus Receptus or NA28 or whatever version of the Bible that your particular translation relies on.
Dr. Kufarophobia, where is the first Bible that exactly matches the Textus Receptus?
Mm-hmm.
Give me a date, Dr. Kufarophobia. We've already said, I don't know why you are just so stupid. Dude.
So, Dr.
This is not
Kufarophobia,
an argument.
when is the first complete Bible manuscript that exactly matches? Maybe you don't know, right? But whatever translation you use, tell me what translation you use, and I'll tell you what the underlying text is. What is the first Bible manuscript that exactly matches it, letter for letter, word for word, dot for dot? Let me know, because that's not a responsible way to do things.
Yeah. The first manuscript that matches the Textus Receptus exactly, letter for letter, dot for dot, is the Textus Receptus.
I know.
The first manuscript that most likely perfectly matches letter for letter, dot to dot, the 1924 Hafs is probably the 1924 Hafs.
Yeah.
There's no difference between those things. If you say that there was no Quran before the 1924 Hafs and there was no Bible before the Textus Receptus.
Yeah, he says we don't make that claim. It's a Muslim claim. Yeah, that
No,
is a false
Muslims-
Muslim
oh
claim.
my
The
gosh,
letter for letter,
it's a
dot for dot is a false
20
Muslim claim.
It's a 20th century claim. No historical Muslims made that claim. So you're not even getting the conventional Muslim claim correct.
We
You
don't
are
claim we have the original.
misunderstanding what historicity
Yeah,
is.
Dr. Kufarophobia. You're
So
misunderstanding. You're
stupid.
misunderstanding the point. Mary and I have the same standard for the Quran and the Bible. You seem to think that because some Muslims have made a ridiculously false claim that somehow we can't take partial versions, we can't take versions that are complete but vary in hundreds of letters. Yeah, I know Muslims make that claim. It's not an all or nothing. Just because someone makes a false claim doesn't mean that every single thing else they say is false to the point that Muhammad never existed or the Quran never existed. This is called nuance, okay? It can be both true that it's a ridiculous false claim that Muslims make and there was a 7th century Quran.
It can also be a true claim that this was no claim that earlier Muslim scholars ever made. If you went to a Muslim scholar in 950 and you ask him, hey, are Mujahid's readings, are they all perfectly word for word the Book of Allah? Scholars would tell you no. Muslim scholars would tell you no, they aren't. Some of them have errors of recitation in them. If you don't know what Muslims actually taught historically, then you can't even interface with them in a rational manner. You were just interfacing with 20th century claims.
Right.
Now,
you can
furthermore,
100%, right? You can 100% cause an average random Muslim who's been taught this stupid lie to have doubts about the truth of their religion by pointing out the stupid claim. But that has absolutely nothing to do with our dispute with Jay Smith. Okay? So they're unrelated issues to one another.
So the neighbor, can you bring up his questions? Oh, if the Quran was not finished into the 8th or 9th century, what is the functional difference of not having
That's actually a
Quran
good
into the 8th or
question.
9th century?
Yeah,
All right,
that's a good question. Thank you.
he has a question about the Sanaa manuscript. The lower text is probably from the 640s, or 630s. Okay?
Right.
Very, very early. And it is a partial text because parts of it have rotted away and disintegrated. Okay? It's not a partial text because it was a complete thing that only contained part of the Quran. It is in a different order.
We don't know. To be clear, we don't know one way or the
what
other.
it could be missing.
Yeah,
but there is
exactly.
no evidence that this is that there's no indication that this is a complete manuscript. In fact, they figured
Right, it
out
doesn't
how
like
many
start
extra...
with a title or something.
Well,
right?
here's the thing. With the way the binding is and the way it was organized into quires, they can figure out how long it was, and we would expect it to be approximately the size of the Quran today, from what we have and what exists in the out of the different quires. So this is 7th century. We have roughly a fifth of it, 18% to 22%, depending on whether or not you talk the number of words or the number of verses. And they are in the same order that verses are in today.
I thought that the undertext was in a different order.
No, the verses within the surah. The surah are in different order.
The surahs are in a different order.
Verses are in the same order.
Okay,
and there are only 61 differences, and this is a rasm, so it's not you couldn't capture any differences of vowels, and a few of the consonants could also be different, right? So you can't capture all the differences, but from what you can capture, there are only 61 differences between that and the Hafs. 61 and 20% of the Quran. None of them are shocking. Now, are there issues in the text that we have in terms of Sharia and in some cases potentially even theology with these very small differences that there are? Yes. Can Allah be surprised at things? According to some readings, he can be surprised. And they don't use human-like expressions and not mean human-like things for Allah. So if he's surprised, he's actually surprised.
Well, I mean, even just not having the vowels will allow that in some cases.
Yeah, so, that's one of the vowel differences, right?
Allah chose like really stupid language to reveal his perfect word in, I guess.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of sentences are ambiguous without vowels.
Oh my gosh, I have been trying to explain to Dr. Kufrophobia that Sanaa manuscript was a single continuous document.
Yeah.
It is a single continuous document written by one person with the same handwriting, okay? One guy sat down and wrote it all. That's why I was telling you that they weren't from hundreds of years apart, because that is stupid, because they are all, it's one continuous document written by one dude. Then that document was erased and a new document was written by a different dude later on top of it. Okay? One continuous document, guys.
All right. So Mary addressed the specific question of the Sanaa manuscript. I wanted to address the meta issue as well. Right. I assume that Mary's correct that he was actually asking about that, but I want to address the larger question just in case. The Quran was not finished until the 8th or 9th century. Was the functional difference of not having a Quran until the 8th or 9th century? Well, the Tanakh, the Old Testament, wasn't finished until like 250 BC. Does that mean that the writings of Moses, the Torah, are somehow invalidated because changes or additional material was added? Of course not. Likewise, when you come to the New Testament, you'll find that textual variants arose throughout Christian history, and many texts, or I shouldn't say many, that is a very bad statement there. A small handful of verses in the range of 20 in the entire New Testament were accepted as canonical, were accepted as part of the text from the time they got added, probably by accident, but regardless, from the time they were added up until modern textual criticism started to take place. And thus, if you're going by the received text, Textus Receptus, or, you know, a different tradition, the majority text, that would be about the number of manuscripts that have this reading, you're going to come to one conclusion about what the original text was. If you're going by the modern critical methods that is behind the NA28, which is the text that is behind most modern translations, you're going to come to a slightly different conclusion. Does this mean that there was no functional Bible until all of these issues had been resolved? Of course not. Just like I allow for the possibility that there was minor editorial changes being made in the Quran into the 8th and maybe even 9th century. I don't know exactly, right? I haven't studied the textual issues. I'm just allowing it as a possibility. I'm not claiming it happened. I'm not claiming it didn't happen. I'm allowing it as a possibility. But minor changes to the tradition, to the text itself, does not mean that the text is a completely different thing. So there is a huge functional difference between minor changes to the text occurring over time and there being no text whatsoever until it was made up wholesale in the 9th century. I hope that makes the point clear.
And Dr. Kufarophobia is very confused because a bunch of manuscripts together were discovered at Sanaa at the same time. Your ChatGPT is confused because they use the word differently for different things. The Sanaa palimpsest is one book, a continuous book beginning to end, written by one person, erased, rewritten. There are a bunch of other Sanaa documents in that same cache that have different names from different periods.
Yep.
Please, you cannot be like this. It is a very bad look for every Christian that you are running around like this.
Yeah, so
Stop.
I don't know if you got this from ChatGPT or a Google AI summary or whatever. Why don't you just go read the Wikipedia article on the Sinai manuscript? I guarantee you that is more reliable than what an AI is going to tell you. And it will tell you that the document generally called the Sinai manuscript is a specific document that's part of a collection of documents discovered in a mosque ceiling or whatever. I think it was in the ceiling, whatever. That was discovered in the mosque within the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years. So you agree? No, I don't.
No,
agree.
I do not agree. I do not agree with any of it. You are saying that the thing that we
You're
call the
conflating
Sanaa
two different
palimpsest,
things. Oh my God.
you are just, there was a library of which the Sanaa palimpsest that I've been talking about, that has 18 to 22% of the Quran in it, is one document written by one person. It must be so hard to be you and get up in the morning and tie your shoes.
Okay, Mary.
Ugh, I am so.
I know. Look,
I have
okay,
had this conversation with him 5 times.
I know, Mary.
Understand the
I
concept
understand.
of a book.
I understand the frustration, but to Dr. Kufarophobia's credit, he is here engaging with us, actually listening to us, whereas most of the J fans are just coming like that guy and says, F you guys, I'm leaving, right? So I want to give him credit for being here and
Hatchet's still here. He's listening.
Yeah,
he
is. I know, yeah.
So there we go.
And I guess it was serious, right? But Dr. J is still more correct. So bring arguments, right? Interact with what we're saying and show us why we're wrong. I can only speak for myself, but I guarantee you I am open to changing my point of view. I am open to correction. I'm open to better arguments being made. And I know this about myself because I have in fact done this numerous times, both on my Christian doctrine and on other subjects, such as my understanding of Islam. So bring arguments. I welcome them.
No, you were explicitly talking about that. We did not misunderstand. It's
it's
fine.
Conflation, okay? So
You can make a mistake.
Manuscript, the one that's labeled DAM01-27.1 is just the Quranic text that was written at the same time. It's not. It itself is not a collection. It's part of a collection. That the label that your AI summary or whatever that was exactly brought is the specific Quranic manuscript, which is all written by one hand at the same time. All right, back to your presentation, Mary. or not. Mary might have stepped away for a second there. Let me take a super chat instead then. And the cat is blocking my view. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. This is what I wanted to do.
If you frequently say it, Allah would pay off your debts. So you can refer to it back again, inshallah.
You get that one a lot when you gift 5 Reason to Answers memberships. It seems to be working. You keep referring to it back again, Jack Ray. Thank you for your generous support, as always. All right, Mary is back. So let's continue with the presentation.
Sorry.
It's all good. All good. It's all good.
Grabbing a drink really fast. Thought I had time. Anyway, the reason why Muslims have not really been interacting on this is because you never want to interrupt an enemy making a mistake. Daniel Hakikatu is going to engage on this only because he negotiated it too. Is the Quran more reliable than the Bible or whatever? There's more evidence for Muhammad or Jesus or something like that, right? Like, that's what he negotiated to in either or. So he's going to spend the entire time attacking the Bible and Jesus. He's going to spend the entire time doing that. And he's not going to engage with any of the materials of Robert Spencer, and I think it's a terrible debate topic to ever do, because every time Muslims do, is it this or that, they always argue in bad faith, and Daniel Hakikatu is the worst. He's going to misrepresent sources, quote mine, make it look like people are saying the opposite of what they're actually saying. And that's why he's doing it, because he can do that.
Yep. Well,
they won't.
There's plenty of people critical, right? There's plenty of scholarship on the biblical manuscripts, the biblical history. It's not hard to quote mine someone. You could quote mine someone from the 1800s that thought that Gospel of John was written in the 5th century. And you'd be like, look what the neutral academic atheist scholars are bringing to the equation, right? It's not hard to quote mine someone and make it the Bible look really bad. I suspect you're probably right that he's just going to ignore the Quran and, just hand wave, say, we have Hadith science or whatever, unlike you Christians. And that'll be the extent of his rebuttal to that, I suspect. But we'll see. We'll see. Robert is a legend, never defeated. Well, that's open to debate. Funny. Regardless, Mary's point is that it's just a bad topic in general, because it allows the Muslim to just be on the offensive. They don't have to ever defend.
Yep.
So it's not really a comment about Robert and or his argument. It's just, I like the way that David does it sometimes, where he's like, if you want to do this versus that, then we got to do it as 2 separate debates. Right? We got to do one on the Quran and one in the Bible. Anyway, so Robert is about to debate the greatest of all liars, Daniel Hakikatu, on this topic. Jay is about to debate Raymond Ibrahim on this topic. So we got material coming up.
Yep. All right. So, I'm just curious as well whether or not anyone has ever claimed that there are specifically 30 Muhammads in the 7th century, aside from J. Smith himself, who has claimed there are many Muhammads. 30 references to Muhammad. Is that what people have run around claiming? There are exactly 30 references to Muhammad, and you have to deal with these. No, no. But it's confronting and responding to people who are saying this.
Mary,
nobody's saying it.
Come on, be honest. You titled your stream "The 30 Sources That Prove Muhammad Existed."
No.
Sorry.
No, I didn't.
I mean, you could get 30. I mean, you didn't have 30 because you were restricted to the 7th century. It was like, I don't know, 18-ish, somewhere around there. But I mean, you could get 30. You could get 100 if you want to go far enough, right? I mean,
and the thing is, if you set it up as a straw man, this one is about a guy named Muhammad. There's no name Muhammad here. Then you're already going to, like, you're setting up straw man to defeat, basically. So, and my question, Mel went to Jay to have the stream because I made that video about the sources. And the question is, has Jay Smith or Mel confronted my video if they haven't watched it? Is it honest to say that they're confronting? If Mel initiated this in response to me streaming a video, can you say that they're confronting anything if they're not even engaging with it directly and honestly? So,
well, they're certainly not responding to the video, right? I mean, in theory, they're responding to a claim, but they're responding to a straw man claim. So,
and
I guess that counts as a response in some sense. But
the person holding the pages that the goat's eating is me, by the way. Anyway, Jay Smith explicitly complains that he and Mel are historians of the origins of Islam. So this is his standard. This is his name. He has called himself that. This is the standard he establishes. He must be held to the standard of historian because he has described himself as such.
Yep.
So, I will debate Jay Smith on a 7th century Quran. I absolutely will. He says no one wants to debate him, so it's too easy to topple over. They want to do Muhammad because it's harder. I will debate Jay Smith on a 7th century Quran.
Mm-hmm.
I will debate him happily.
I also think it's interesting to claim that no one has ever challenged him on this, because I am quite certain that Shabir Ali debated him on that topic.
I'm sure.
A long time ago, like 20 years ago, when Jay didn't know nearly as much as he knows now. And in fairness, Shabir didn't really know much of anything about what Jay was bringing. And he just kind of got off on, but there's too many 19s.
Yeah,
so
I
it was
don't
really
even know
a really
that
bad
is.
debate, but
Crazy.
it was a debate on the
hilarious.
topic nonetheless. Anyway, continue.
So the question, the next topic is, how do Jay Smith and his sin sifters do research? What is their approach? So supposedly Jay's full-time job is to evaluate and disseminate this research. This is his job. This is what he does. Don't talk about having a life or not having a life. This is what he does. This is his calling. Mel is one of his key informants. So if you don't have enough, if you have too much of a life to do research, that's a problem. The quality
just to be
of,
clear, sorry, just to be clear, Mary, I do believe that Jay is a full-time missionary. I think he's supported by a church, but he has literally no other job than this.
Right.
Mel has a regular employment. He says he doesn't have 5 hours, whatever. But this is Jay's only job.
Yep. The quality of Mel and Jay's information is interlinked. I don't think you brought it up, but Jay has made a comment that Mel is one of the most informed people. The reason why Mel is going on with Jay is because he is one of the chief researchers and informants for Jay. The question is, do Mel and Jay meet the minimum standards of research? So, I forgot I had another one. So, here is.
Mary is disorganized. This is the proof.
I am disorganized. I'm sorry. Here, let me just share this for you. I will make it full screen on this one. Not like that. Oh, I can't really do that. All right. Shame on me. Let me share something else. Okay. It's very short. Very short.
No, Cargo Crew. So Cargo Crew says, bring infallible proof and shut our mouths. And then he says, proof of the sin. The standard is what counts as infallible. I know that well, first of all, you are setting up a false dichotomy, first of all, because it's not everything in Islam is true, or Muhammad never existed. So first of all, you're setting up a false dilemma. But second of all, I want to know what the standard that you consider infallible is, right? What is the infallible? What is the word infallible? What is a piece of evidence that is infallible?
So ridiculous.
Because I guarantee you, whatever standard you bring, I can show you a reason to deny that standard. This is just a game, right? if you can't satisfy me to my criteria, which I will not define for you, then you have no evidence. What does that sound like? Right? What does that sound like to everyone in the chat? Does that sound like the typical atheist who comes into these streams and annoys us? And I know that's not you, Cargo Crew. To be clear, I'm not calling you that. I'm just saying it's the same methodology. So give me what you would consider infallible evidence.
I was actually accidentally sharing the audio right then, wasn't I? Sorry about that. I was trying to listen to it myself and get to the correct place. Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that audio just now?
No. If you played a video, we did not hear it.
Dear. Okay. All right. Well, then I will have to send this to you. I will send it to you in the chat.
So because you forgot exactly what was on your slide, Dr. Kufarphobia says, she says signs of ADHD, as if somehow this is an argument against you.
Okay, there we go. Terrible argument. Oh no, you think I show signs of ADHD? All right.
Great. I mean, does that mean her arguments are false? Hatchet wanted to say the same thing. Great, guys.
Okay.
Mary has ADHD.
If you want to say that, that's fine.
Argument?
But
yeah, you got an actual argument.
What would that mean?
I don't know what the point is.
All right. Would you pull that up for me?
I would be happy to pull some. Where did you put it?
I sent it to the chat right here.
Okay. Yep. I see it.
And I'll tell you when to stop.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Obviously, I gotta paste it and stuff. Did you want to start at 1:24? Because that's the timestamp you gave me.
Yep.
All right.
And his empire, by the time he died in 632, remember?
Start playing on.
That's it. That's good. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. You're just making bigger. Sorry about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
The caliphate comes into creation in 624. 2 years after he moves Medina, he introduces the caliphate. So from 624 up until 632, the last 8 years of his life, that brown area was conquered. But after he dies in 632, then you have Abu Bakr.
Wait, 1 second. Just keep. I
accidentally clicked. I was trying
all
to
the way
pause.
back. Just show the picture right there. Nope. The picture of the map. And then here's the other thing. Okay. So he says that he introduces the caliphate 2 years after he moves there.
Yes.
What?
In 624. So.
After Hijra is the date that everyone uses. That's the only thing that they care about. After Hijra. What is this caliphate that he supposedly introduces? Is he ever called a caliph? Is Muhammad a caliph?
No, I mean, I'm going to try to be charitable here. I think what Jay is trying to say is the offensive conquest didn't start till 624.
Well, the Battle of Badr started then. How is he a caliph then? How is he introducing the caliph? And I want you to, and this is not Jay's slide that he made up just now for this thing. This is Jay's slide he's been using for years. What's the name of the period at the top?
I'm sorry. You mean this right here?
Yep.
Okay. The Rashidun period, 632 to 661.
What's wrong with that? It's called the Rashidun period.
So it's misspelled?
Yeah, it's misspelled. But this this is the kind of thing that Jay does all the time, constantly, on every little detail. He'll tell you what every Muslim believes. They all believe that Ibn Ishaq was an eyewitness to Muhammad. They all believe that Al-Bukhari is an eyewitness to Muhammad. Yeah, he says it. That they all believe
I've never met a Muslim who believed that.
No, that they are taught about the Rashidun period instead of the Rashidun. Would you bring up my slide? And so this is the equivalent of teaching people to say all American children learned that Columbus sailed in 1494.
I can't bring up your slide because you're not sharing your screen.
Sorry. In 1494, in the Nina, the Pinto, and the Santa Maria. Like, it's that level of just small carelessness about every little detail. Every little detail is a little bit off, even in the stuff that he says that Muslims supposedly learn from childhood. So if a Muslim's sitting there looking at that, because this is a polished not just one type of, this has stood for years. And it's saying the Rashidun period, and that the key date is 624. Yes, Jay just called Muhammad a caliph. This is the kind of thing that he does all the time. So, and it's not, what is it? It's the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and every child knows that and learns that in elementary school. Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. If somebody's over there telling you it's a pinto, like pinto beans, you'd raise an eyebrow and wonder how much stuff they actually know. And this is just the level. And yes, the Rashidun period does, but
his slide, right? He said that 624 is the key year, but his
Yep.
slide says 622. So his slide doesn't even agree with him.
Yeah.
And
622 is the Hijra and is the important year. But the important is just the carelessness, every little thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
And this is polished.
The smile details are wrong, right? And this is intentionality here, right? This is an intentional slide he put together. It's not him misspeaking. Maybe saying 624 in principle could be misspeaking, but actually not, because he specifically says 2 years after the Hijra,
and
or 2 years after he moved there, right? So the point being, it isn't like he made a mistake, therefore Jay is wrong. The point is, he's putting himself out there as someone who's done very careful research, very carefully presented this, and he's been presenting slightly erroneous information for years.
Telling everyone that Muhammad was the first caliph. Caliph means successor. He's a successor to whom? Like, this makes no sense, right? So, next are continuing, how do they do research? They have shifting goalposts for everything. So,
and we've seen that repeatedly in the chat here, right? They'll propose something, we'll meet that, and then they'll propose something different.
Yeah. So I did a live stream mainly to present non-Islamic 7th century sources for Muhammad, because this was requested by subscribers as being useful during my Q&A live stream. Thaddeus added timestamps to make it easy to jump around in. I began with a definition of Muhammad mysticism, because Mel had done his best to poison the well against anyone who, she's using the word mysticism, so she's calling you all fantasists. No. Mel had already made a 45-minute video entirely dedicated to me, and he concealed
it's even
portions
called
of the
refuting
sources.
too many Marys. So,
Well, he began with too many errors, and he put up a slide, and he chuckled over and everything. So the stream was not dedicated to him. I just wanted to unpoison the well at the beginning. So I had mentioned before, Mel won't have it both ways. This was covered thoroughly in the introduction. Don't need to.
So I do have a request. Dr. Kufarophobia wants me to replay the video, which is fine. I will do that. Whoops.
Oh, yeah. But he introduces the caliphate. Yeah.
And Medina there. That's where it all takes place. And his empire, by the time he died in 632, remember the caliphate comes into creation in 624, 2 years after he moves Medina.
So I will correct. He doesn't call him a caliph. He says he started the caliphate, which obviously by consequence means he's the caliph. But he didn't literally say the word Muhammad is a caliph.
But if he started the caliphate.
I know.
Who is the leader of a caliphate?
It's a caliph, obviously.
Yeah.
Caliphate, he says the caliphate becomes into existence in 624.
So here is...
Which, is there a reason he's appealing to 624? I don't know.
I have no idea. I'm completely baffled as to why he thinks that's important, or that Muslims believe stuff about that. So, oops, you can freeze this immediately after you bring it up. Do let it play for a couple minutes, because he's going to explain it.
Okay.
YouTube again. Sorry about that.
Give me 1 second. Hey, you just heard him say it a second time. He introduces the caliphate.
Yep.
All right. All right. And So I hit pause, it paused, and then it started playing again before I added it to the screen. All right, it's on
There
the
we go.
screen. We got Mel's
So
videos here.
Mel is here chastising me about taking days to verify dates for things because it doesn't take days, it takes weeks, months, or years. He's saying days is way too short. It takes weeks, months, or years to do it. And go ahead. And so I'm not doing my research because I don't say that the section in Sebios that has Muhammad's name, and by the way, it isn't MHMD, it's the entire name spelled out, so he doesn't even know what is in this text, is an interpolation because Professor Kerr had it read by a native speaker, and he said it was very obvious. We will deal with that statement.
All right, let's hear Mel. Yeah, let's hear Mel. How long do you want me to play? Obviously not 30.
I'll tell you when to stop.
Okay, sounds good.
Back and forth between us. So I challenged her, and I mentioned to her that dating these things don't take days. There was a little bit before this. I think I said something about it takes a lot of time. You know, it's not a criticism, but it does take a lot of time to date these things.
More than 5 hours, perhaps?
Go ahead.
The fact stands that the argument hinges on accuracy. The Tayyei are a specific tribe, a subset of the much larger group Arab, and she's basically saying that they're all the same thing. There's an overlap, but it's a subset. Our cult doesn't say Arab or anti-Christian, but your table claims he does. Things like that matter.
All right, go ahead, stop it.
Small details do matter. Small details do matter.
The reason why I said that Tayyei means Arab is because I actually read the sources, and I read the source that says that Arabs whom we call Tayyei actually means what they say. So I read a period source from the 7th century that said that they were synonymous to Christian speakers of Aramaic, and I believed them. But instead, I ought to believe Mel's stories because that's better research than people in the 7th century. And again, he's wanting perfect. The word anti-Christian, when I had anti-Christian theology in it, anti-Christian, that word, I had anti-Christ theology is actually what I had in it. But rather, I needed to have the perfect word anti-Christian or otherwise in a source or otherwise I'd mark it wrongly. This is how Mel does research. If you go back to mine, we'll take a look at that.
I do want to say that Mel is correct, right? Small little details matter. Small little details like the ones that no doubt Jay's fans will be upset about us pointing out and saying they don't matter.
Yep. And now note that the source, he talked about this research with a native speaker who told Kerr this obvious interpolation. That is from a private email exchange with Robert Kerr, and it's not from a published work. Why? Because it's not credible. I doubt that Kerr actually said it is an obvious interpolation because a native speaker told me it was.
I mean, whether he did or not, it's not published. It's not available to critique his opinion.
That is also not a credible statement. That would be a false statement. That if you have the way that you could tell that is interpolated in a manuscript is from the writing, not from a native speaker or not. It is not interpolated physically in the manuscript. So how else could it be interpolated? It could be interpolated by someone writing it out later and adding it in. Right. He is saying it as if I had this paragraph written out in my hand, just clearly, plainly, would it be an obvious interpolation? Would Tom be an obvious interpolation here? Are you coming to work today, Tom? I hope you are. I can't stand to work with Bob when you're not here.
I think you are actually straw manning a bit here, Mary, because obviously if it was literally interpolated in a copy of a manuscript, that would be very obvious. But
no, I'm not. No, I'm explaining to you what the alternative was. It's not an interpolation as in like shoved in. I'm asking you, can you tell?
Okay, so Mary, can you?
I'm
so
explaining
the assumption would be, right? The assumption would be that it was interpolated in a previous copy and then copied over, so you won't be able to tell from the hand writing it.
Yes.
Which means you would, in at least Mel's mind, you would determine based on the grammar or whatever.
Yes, and that's what I'm addressing here. I'm not straw manning. I'm addressing that assertion that you can tell from the grammar. Can you tell from this text here whether or not the word Tom was interpolated. Whether or not originally I wrote, "Are you coming to work today? I hope you are. I can't stand to work with Bob when you're not here." And then later it was written, "Are you coming to work with today, Tom? I hope you are. I can't stand to work with Bob when you're not here."
Right. Well, that wouldn't technically be an interpolation, but
Well, yeah, it would be if it was added. If it was put in.
Yeah, it'd have to just be added. But you said it was changed from Bob to Tom.
No, I didn't. Okay, let me try again.
Okay. Sorry,
Again.
I misunderstood.
This is like an English speaker telling you that Tom, the word Tom, was interpolated in this paragraph. "Are you coming to work today, Tom? I hope you are. I can't stand to work with Bob when you're not here."
Okay.
Can you tell that the original was, "Are you coming to work today? I hope you are," or whether the original was, "Are you coming to work today, Tom?
Yeah,
I hope you are."
there's no way to determine that.
Okay.
Sure.
In Armenian grammar, all verbs are conjugated, so you don't necessarily need a noun with every verb. Now, in English, you have a question without an obvious subject, and then you can address someone. Or if you have a command, it doesn't always have like, "Go to your room, Tom." Like either one could be it. You're not missing anything without the Tom grammatically. That's the only thing that he could have meant in that sentence. I looked at the sentence. It's not possible in the format that exists to presume that there was an original in which Tom was not being addressed. It is the same for Muhammad. It cannot be an obvious interpolation. All you can say is that Armenian grammar allows you to have sentences without explicit subjects, just like Spanish. That's all you can say. And I really suspect that Mel's lack of linguistic experience fails him here, as it frequently does.
I mean, it's really hard to evaluate this claim. Like you said, it's not published. It's not available for
I looked at the Armenian, and I looked up Armenian grammar.
Well, I mean, I don't even know what the claim is, actually. I assumed the claim was the whole passage was interpolated, not just one word.
I think
again, it's supposed private communication. So I have no idea what Kerr may or may not have said. It's just impossible to evaluate it fairly because it's not anything that's on the actual record. But Mel acts like we're stupid for not knowing about this private revelation.
Well, it's just a goofy argument to begin with. And there's a reason it's not published.
I think it's if it was a credible argument, right? If there was credible reason to believe this was interpolated, it could be published in a peer-reviewed academic journal.
And I have a background in linguistics. I can look up features of a language and I know what the words mean. So
yeah. So, but I don't know if the claim is just
Dr.
the word was interpolated or the whole passage is fake or whatever. But regardless, if it was a credible claim, it should be more than just some private communication, some private speculation, right? Anyone can speculate anything in private. I mean, I have no way of saying that Kerr didn't tell Mel this, but I also have no way of telling him, verifying that he did. Nor do I care, really. I mean, it's irrelevant. I can, off stream, I could speculate to Mary about all kinds of things, but if they're not on the record, they're not subject to anyone reviewing them and saying, you're wrong because you speculated about this, and then so on and so forth, right? I often will speculate possibilities and then do research to try to verify whether my speculation is correct or not. And sometimes my speculation was wrong and sometimes it was right. But my off the record speculation, it can't be used as evidence against me or for anything.
Yep. Anyway, especially not to say that you are doing terrible research if you don't know a private conversation that I happen to have.
Yeah, I know.
You're getting feedback for some reason now. Anyway, didn't have time to watch the 5 hours, but had time to spend days apparently verifying all this stuff. Did have time to do a 45-minute video specifically attacking me, and then a 3-hour live stream in response to my video that he said he didn't watch. And he did watch parts of the stream because he began with the coins, which is what I began with. And then Jay was set up to call me and the ancient Christians Muslims because of the arguments that the ancient Christians made that I dare repeat what ancient Christians would say. So here are theories. So The next topic is further evaluation of the sin sifter approach. The theories that Mel currently believes are not credible. So he currently believes that it is not credible that Muhammad was a real person who founded a religion, just like every other similar religion that took off in a new direction from the surrounding religious milieu. He believes it is not credible to say that Muhammad was from an environment beyond the limes of Rome, which would preclude ample documentation. He believes it is not credible to say that the Quran was written by a stupid person mangling oral stories. He says not credible to believe that the Kaaba was an existing pagan shrine, just like many others. He believes it is not credible to say that the first followers were near illiterate Arabs with no access to written scripture that was pre-existing in a language they understood. He believes it is not credible to assert that the Quran is in the Hijazi dialect, as has now been shown with conclusive evidence. Here are theories that Mel has believed are credible. It is credible to examine this image from 1315 and speculate the hidden things that it's telling you about 7th century Arabia. It's credible to believe that the origins of Islam may be connected to Ireland in some way because two words kind of sound the same. He has believed that it's credible that Islam could have come from China. He has believed that it's credible that Islam could have come from Mesopotamia. He has believed that it's credible that Islam could have come from Petra. He has believed that it's credible that Islam came from Damascus. He has believed it's credible that Islam came from Jerusalem. He has believed that it's credible recently that Islam came from Ethiopia. He has believed it's credible that Islam definitely came from the Jews. And he has believed that it's credible that Islam certainly came from the Christians. What is a constant?
I want to pause.
Yeah.
I want to pause you for 1 second because I found one of those to be especially ironic when he said, and you are correct, he is now speculating that Islam came from Ethiopia. When Lloyd DeYoung proposed that idea on my channel several years ago, Mel came in and accused Lloyd of repeating the standard narrative. I just thought I would point that out.
How is that standard? Whatever.
Well, because Lloyd was I don't know what Mel's relying on.
Yeah,
exactly, but Lloyd was relying on some hadith that give a high praise to Ethiopia and Yemen. So he's saying that it came from some combination of Yemen and Ethiopia, and the Mecca was moved to the north. I mean, Lloyd's ideas are not super important. The point is that because it wasn't the idea he agreed with at the time, it was blindly supporting the standard narrative. But now it's the narrative that he's going with, apparently.
Yep. So, but his constant is because Islam came from somewhere where there were no pagans, it has no pagan origins. He denies paganism and the origin of Islam, which is just head-bangingly ridiculous to me. So Jay, along with Mel, holds hands with the theory that Christians and or Jews had so little adherence to orthodoxy, if it even existed at that point, that the proto-Islamic community held widespread appeal and believing Christians were happy to join. Not just, in every society you're going to have people who just don't care. And
right,
don't really have,
plenty of conquered people will submit to the conqueror. Yeah, I mean,
lots of people have no convictions. You conquered an Islamic area, and you kind of broke up the Islamic networks, and the only way you could get ahead is by being a Christian. Tons of them quote convert, unquote, for sure, right?
For sure.
But that is because they don't really have any convictions, and it's convenient. They'll adhere to whatever their society presses on them. That is not an indication that pious Muslims would suddenly jump into Christianity just because somebody says, I don't know, Muhammad actually told about Jesus and that he was God. And so you should obey him, and because he really taught that Jesus was God, so join up. And then tons of Muslims come up. But that's the level of stuff that this pseudo-Christian milieu does, and is very, very upsetting that Jay Smith runs around talking about how they were Christians. They may have been Aryan Christians or this kind of Christian or that kind. No. you're saying that there was no orthodoxy that anybody cared about to an extent that people would avoid joining a totally different sect and cult that was teaching things opposed to their own faith. That is not the picture that we have.
Yeah, I mean, some Christians believe in the death, deity, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and others deny all those. What's the problem, Mary?
And that is what J. Smith is teaching. Some Christians believe that Jesus was God in the 6th century or in the 7th century, and some didn't, and that was just part of the beliefs of Christians. So this is not only storytelling, it's very destructive storytelling.
Yeah, and again, we've chosen to address this because we think it's a bad, dangerous thing to be taught, not just simply wrong. Right? I think lots of Christians, well, I mean, if I'm being honest, I think all Christians, including myself, sometimes say things that are wrong. I don't feel the need to correct someone every time they say something that's wrong. I do feel the need to speak out against this because it's not just wrong, it's dangerous for the Christian evangelism.
So there's a question about what do, so certain scholars who are in the extreme wing of the revisionist school try to drag other people in with them who do not agree with them at all. And they're like, yeah, okay, we have a few points in common, but the rest we don't. And this is Juan Cole, who's responding to Joshua Little after he was invoked in an article. And he talked about, it's a fine and detailed look on how contemporary academics, this means fine as in cut finely, on how they view later Muslim sources on early Islam. It seems to me, however, flawed in two ways. It does not attend to how Cook and Crone drastically revise their views over time. Because you're invoking Crone and Crona
to be
and
clear,
Cook's original stance.
Yeah, to be clear, just because Cook and Crone changed their point of view doesn't necessarily mean their original point of view is wrong. But to invoke their original point of view under their authority of how great a scholar Patricia Crone is or whatever, when she in fact rejected those ideas herself later on, is kind of dishonest, to be frank. To say that, oh, you know, she knew 12 languages or whatever number of languages and she studied hundreds of documents and this is the conclusion she came to, when you're proposing her original conclusion that was then revised in light of rigorous academic feedback and people pushing back on evidence and her reconsidering in light of arguments. That's what an actual responsible academic does, right? Their arguments are subject to be changed by the publishing process, the feedback process, and that's what Crone did. So to invoke her original arguments under her own authority is dishonest, in my opinion.
Yep. So this focus allows the author to group all these writers together as stemming from a so-called revisionist tradition. He has scare quotes around tradition. But other theses of the revisionists, such as the lateness of the Quran, the origins of Islam in Jordan or Palestine, and Aramaic substrate for the Quranic Arabic, or the reliability of early Christian accounts of Islam, are ignored. What are their theses? That is why he is confused about my seeming to accept a revisionist school while being critical of it. What did he do? He rejected all these other theses of revisionist schools. I reject almost everything else the revisionists propose. And that is how you find most people in a group. There's a very tiny core of actual revisionists and some people who say a few things that aren't nearly as extreme that the revisionists want to call their own, but they're like, no, I don't agree with you on all the rest of this. This is just not what I believe. I don't think that this is true based on the evidence. Why are you invoking me in this whenever I'm just basically being a responsible historian? So I want to note that this Abrahamic argument, which he generally agrees with, right, is inherently anti-Christian. And it will gain traction because of the Academy's hatred of Christianity. This validates the claims of the Quran rather than disputes it. because the Quran says that I'm coming to unify everyone. You guys will recognize me and follow me, and then spends like 3/4 of the time screaming at people because they don't recognize him and follow him. What does this mean? In the Quran, it actually shows that people didn't follow him. He just said they should. But these people are wanting to validate Muhammad's own claims of being a pan-Abrahamic figure. Yes, he was. They followed him. That is just like saying that Joseph Smith was a pan-denominationalist figure in Christianity. Joseph Smith is a pan-denominational Christian. Would you accept that?
No, no way.
Would the people in the chat accept that Joseph Smith is a pan-denominationalist Christian? Would you say, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Joseph Smith, he's totally a pan-denominationalist Christian. He united people of all denominations in Christianity, because that is what they're saying.
I'm sure that converts, I'm sure that converts to Mormonism, which originally Joseph Smith called a completely different religion. Now,
hang on. No, he called it the restored gospel of Christ.
Yeah. But I mean, different religion, right? Different religion than what Christians at the time believed. Like, he was quite explicit that they were wrong. That it's not just a different denomination.
No. So hang on. It's pan-denominationalist in the sense that Joseph Smith was teaching that he was above these petty dissensions and divisions. But Muhammad was saying that he's pan-Abrahamic. He's above these petty dissensions and disagreements. So
you got to let me finish sometimes, Mary, because you often respond to points that I was not making at all.
Sorry.
I was just going to say that I'm sure that he drew in people from a wide variety of denominations, and he could therefore legitimately claim that he was transcending the, denominational bickering or whatever. In any case, Steph S says, came in way late as Jay teaching Christians in 6th century didn't believe Christ resurrected. Not directly. He's not explicitly saying that, but he is reliant on that being a true statement that some Christians in the 6th century, in fact, did not believe in Christ resurrected, that their religion was, just so amorphous that they could allow for these non-Muslim, whatever, pseudo-Christian believers to be part of the Christian faith, even though they denied explicitly the death and resurrection of Jesus. So he is actually teaching it, even if he doesn't say those exact words. Yeah, I don't think any Mormons ate Christians either.
That's very funny. But yes, Mormons aren't Christian. Muhammad is not an Abrahamic figure. He claims Abraham the same way Joseph Smith claims Christianity, like a skin suit.
Of course, Jay's theory is fuzzy, but that's the point. The sin is fuzzy. No, that's not how you do history. You can't do history by saying, it could be any of hundreds of different things, but it's definitely not this one thing. That's not a responsible way to do things. And again, I've challenged you so many times over the streams to give me a standard by which you would accept as infallible proof, which isn't actually the criteria of history, right? The criteria of history is the most plausible explanation for the available data. But I've asked you to provide a criteria which will support your proposal, and all you keep saying is all the burden of proof is on you. That is not a responsible way to do things, ever. And you won't give me a standard because you know you can't give me one.
Yep, and here's the thing. This is the level of proof that he has demanded previously for himself, where you can say Ireland, China, Mesopotamia, Petra, Damascus, Jerusalem, Ethiopia, and then from Jews and Christians. And all of those are credible, plausible, real possibilities based on his evidence, which is storytelling. His evidence level is storytelling. And then now you want incontrovertible truth, like something that would completely indisputable. No, what you have are hundreds of pieces of evidence that together point in one direction.
I know. We've explained this so many times. This is how history's done. The congruence of evidence, right? The compatibility of evidence that leads to a plausible explanation for the vast majority of the evidence. You don't just look at one piece in isolation and say, this could mean anything. Next piece of evidence. This could mean anything. Next piece of evidence. This can mean anything. Oh, we have no idea about anything in history. That's not how you do history. Weird stuff says were sects. So this is a good pushback, actually. There were sects that called themselves Christians, but they didn't believe in Jesus' resurrection, divinity, or virgin birth at the time of Muhammad. Your response, Mary?
They were not at the they were not at the time of Muhammad. They weren't at the time of Muhammad. That's the issue, and they weren't in the limes of Rome. There were Jews in the Roman Empire. In Arabia, within the Roman borders, and even beyond the edges, all of northern Arabia, even the northern Hijaz, down into the Lakhmid areas, and then all within actual Rome, and there were no groups left who didn't believe in these things. They were gone. They died out. The last vestiges of them died out in the 400s. Last tiny traces died out 200 years before Muhammad. And even more than that, imagine that Joseph Smith shows up in your town, or some different figure like Joseph Smith. Someone sets up Mormonism has never existed before in your town. Something new that just appears. And then they violently subjugate you and take over. Do you guys have the same religion? Do you identify as the same people? Do you have the same beliefs? But Jay Smith keeps consistently identifying these people as Christian, and that they just kind of like, all the Jews and Christians just kind of flocked to them, came to them. That's what Muhammad said about himself. How many actual converts did he get from Christianity in his lifetime among people who were not previously slaves? 0. You got 0 non-slave Christian converts. How many Jewish converts did he get before the conquest, before he started killing Jews? And like, you had to either convert or die.
1, right? It's
one, and then his family of women.
See, you got 1 Jewish convert. This proves that this was normative Judaism.
No, the weird stuff. The Panarian is from the 300s. And the Panarian was listing cults, most of which did not even exist anymore, or never existed in some cases. By the time you get to so Justinian, one thing that he did, he spent an enormous amount of money on local education, Christian education, hospitals, and getting rid of the last vestiges of paganism that emerged through ignorance, getting rid of false teaching that was there because it was able to take root in an area that was not church sufficiently. So they died out. They were exiled to where? Where were they still alive in the 7th century? You got some folks up in you have one small group of pagans hanging around in Haran who got kicked out of Athens. Oops. We can hear that. Oh wait, no, it's me. I did that. Sorry.
Huh? I don't know what you heard.
I was
playing. I don't know what you heard, but I didn't hear anything.
Well, I wasn't expecting a 40-minute introduction. I was expecting like a 5-minute introduction. Sorry. But we'll be wrapping up.
We'll be wrapping up shortly. Okay.
Yep.
That's all I needed to know.
Yep.
I did want to highlight this real quick. Carter says the standard is common sense. Well, common sense is that if you have 30 different explanations for 30 different pieces of evidence, that's not plausible. And there's a reason why every historian who looks at this comes to the same conclusion, because they all have common sense. But what you really mean by common sense is my own subjective judgment is what you really mean. And that's not a standard that anyone can meet, your own subjective judgment.
And again, that's storytelling. The story that I like is the story that I go with. All right. So The next topic, a very important one, is a huge amount of J. Smith's arguments is about the transcription of the name Muhammad. The thesis behind his arguments is that if people write a name in different ways, they're different people. If this is not true, then his thesis is wrong. Okay? And so the question is then, is Jay a credible historian? Muhammad, as such, was created in the late 7th to early 8th century, this Muhammad figure of Islam. Therefore, by the Abbasid period, the name should be fixed in translation. So if Muhammad has been created already, and this is definitely Muhammad, it's not Mahmed, it's not anybody else, it's Muhammad. Muhammad emerges entirely out of whatever else. I don't know why they changed the name. But anyway, they changed the name to Muhammad, or they fixed the name as Muhammad. That is the name, even in his theory. By the early 8th century, the name is Muhammad. Therefore, we should have everything written clearly as Muhammad after this point. And then before, we see other things that might be Mahmed, might be Mahmet, might be something else. If Jay is a credible historian, he's making credible arguments that the name is definitely Mahmed now, and then later becomes Muhammad, then this cornerstone thesis will be supported. Jay cannot hide behind the scholar saying it because he argues from spelling. First of all, hiding behind scholars is usually false because Jay misrepresents practically every scholar he cites. And this would show that Jay couldn't be trusted to present plausible information if he's like, the scholars say it, not me. Well, if you're hiding behind scholars and are saying, oh, well, blame them, that means that I can't trust you to check to see whether or not information is plausible. You called yourself a historian, can't trust you whether or not you present plausible information. And at worst, you're deliberately supporting things you already know are false and getting people to repeat them, which is hugely problematic. So let's test this with English. In English, after the early 8th century, do we only have the form Muhammad? English people didn't even become aware of Muhammad until long after this myth had been fixed in Jay's timeline. So here's the thesis again. Through the 19th century, we had Mahomet. Oh, but we have a D in English. Why is it a T? Thaddeus. This must be someone else.
Yeah, I guess so.
And then English, late 19th to most of 20th century, it's Muhammad with an O and an E. And now with the typical transcription, we do Muhammad, is how we typically transcribe it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Muslim or Muslim? Which one is it?
I don't know. Must be two different groups.
Must be two different groups. And according to this whole, it must be fixed or it's a different name, the life of Mahomet is not about Muhammad when it was written in the 19th century.
Mm-hmm.
Latin transcriptions. Again, will it be fixed? Let's test Latin sources from the 19th century onward. So transcribing Muhammad as Muhammadus should be easy. Let's just say, fine, we'll just let some of the vowels switch around, fine. The correspondence between the letters in Arabic and the sounds in Latin are pretty direct. You can't actually make too many discretionary choices there, especially the consonants. But let's see what we get. So there are a whole bunch of different documents that are collectively called the Latin Lives. These are totally separate documents from separate periods, separate places, separate times. So again, we have 4 times Mahometus, 4 times. Makumetus, 2 times. Mahomet, 2 times. Mohammed, 1 time. Mahometus, 1 time. Mahometh, 1 time. Muhammad, 1 time. And Mametus, 1 time. These are all talking about apparently different people. From context, they're all
let's
because
see.
they all refer to
8 different people. 8 different people.
Yeah. So there are 8 different people. However, some of these are just different variants of the same manuscript, by the way, that have different versions of the name. Because
so Mary, when some copies of the Gospels have John spelled with 2 N's and some have it spelled with 1, that's not 2 different people?
That's not two different people either. So.
Darn. Thought I discovered the extra jawed.
Mhm. So I haven't even gotten to this in his presentation today, but previously he has said things like Muhammad or Mehmet or Mehmet definitely can't be Muhammad because Syriac, and these are the Syriac forms, Syriac could have 3 syllables and it could have the proper vowels. It ought to. The Syriac versions of the Bahira legend come after the Islamic ones. After Muhammad's identity had been set, they exclusively call him Mahmed. Exclusively. They don't use any other name for him. Why are there 2 syllables? Why not 3?
So pause just 1 second. So the Bahira legend is actually a good example of how fake history was done at the time, right? Because they're ascribing, it's kind of a prophecy. It's not exactly a prophecy, but they're ascribing this mystical vision to this figure of the past to predict what people know took place, right? That's what the writing of fictional history looks like at the time. We can say pretty confidently that the Bahira story is a myth that was created to support the historical figure of Muhammad. Just wanted to point that out.
I think that the Bahira legend is entirely made up. I think that because
that's what I just said.
Yeah.
Mary, that's literally what I said, that they made up the legend of Bahira to support the legitimacy of the historical Muhammad's so-called prophet.
Well, the original Bahira legend and then the Syriac ones were made up to make fun of Muhammad. These are Christian. These are the Christian Bahira legends.
Okay, whatever.
So sorry to be clear. So
okay. Well, the Islamic version,
yes.
He's affirming that Muhammad's a prophet.
Yes.
I didn't realize that these are saying the opposite. But either way, they're made up to make conclusions about a real person.
Yeah.
Right?
And so
Bahira is not real.
Correct.
Muhammad's real. That is the difference between, legend and historical reality, illustrated in one story, and how we can conclude that about history.
Yep. And I do want to point out that most of just like in English, it's all English speakers who have the different versions of Muhammad here. They're not different dialects. With this, a huge number of these were all from Spain. So it's not like completely different languages. They're hearing it differently and then going to Latin.
And Dr. Kufar actually said something very important.
Yeah.
By those dates in that table you just showed, Muhammad was already well established, and yet they're still spelling his name dozen different ways.
Yeah.
So Jay, to say that the spellings are different in the early 7th century documents as evidence that they're talking about different people is not credible.
Yeah.
Thank you. You actually made our point for us.
Yeah. And to articulate it a little bit better. So as Hadi said, we have Bahira made up to support the Muhammad legend. Then we have Christians making up stories about fictional Bahira 100 years after that to attack the fictional story of Bahira, right?
Yep.
So they make up these smears later. So this later stuff is after this figure has been securely established, to be clear, right?
That's the only way it makes sense.
So how I'm explaining it. So the legend exists. They're making up new polemics against the legend, which is storytelling. They're making up stories about another story that was told about Muhammad. And so it's a story battle currently at this point. So, but why 2 syllables? Why not Muhammad? Muhammad is established by this point. He has to be. Why 2 syllables? Well, gemination, it isn't productive in Semitic languages generally, which means that jumped, jumping. You see those endings that I can add to it? That's what we call a productive form. I can take it on a whole bunch of different words and just apply it to it, and it creates the form for me. Gemination, which is making 2 letters double, was not generally productive, meaning that you couldn't just use it to add a new meaning. You either had the word or you didn't. And so Muhammad sounds weird because there wasn't a parallel with gemination in Syriac, even though they're cousin languages. But Mehmet, it sounds like a more comfortable form. it matches what you would do in Syriac naturally, just like we say John rather than anything, right? Because it's more comfortable for us the way we say it. Now, note that the fragment on the conquest actually has a form with the U. That W can be U or W. It's using the mater lectionis for the U, meaning an optional letter that you can or you don't have to necessarily write. It can be a consonant sometimes. It can be a vowel. You write it to like really emphasize that it's there. And it's likely because this form is weird. It's telling you don't read it as Mahmed, which is what you'd normally read it as with 9 vowels. I'm going to throw in that mater lectionis as if it's a long U so that you know that it's Muhammad and it's 3 syllables. But as people had to use this word more often, they preferred something that sounded right to their ears. And so a question, if you wanted to say aide de camp, you say aide de camp. You don't say aide du camp. Like nobody says that in English because it's not comfortable. Even though we've kept the form, we don't say it that way. It's just too uncomfortable. So the Syriac forms themselves just prove it as a title or even a name. The fact that the T form is taken for a trilateral root, it's significant, it's important. Because if it existed as M, Ref H, M, D, would people be mishearing it as a T all the time? That is, which doesn't even exist as a trilateral root in that language.
I mean, I'm not an expert on Syriac, but it doesn't seem very plausible to me.
Like, if it's the same name with a slightly different accent, you'd be able to recognize it as a name. So that already condemns any view that Mahmud had a lot of meaning to people then.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I misunderstood what you were asking exactly. Yes. If it was a well-established title for Jesus, as Jay sometimes proposes, then people would not mishear it. If that was your question, then yes, I agree completely.
So I talk about gemination as 2 letters doubled because we write Muhammad with 2 M's in English, but in Arabic you say Muhammad. You just say it longer, Muhammad. And for it to be 3 syllables, you have to have the gemination in there. You'd have to have it, and so that's just weird and uncomfortable in its form for Aramaic, just to be popping out of nowhere. So nice. So the difference in accents caused a map from one letter to a different letter. Muhammad, it was not an aspirated D. It was not Muhammad. You didn't let go of that final D sound. And so to a lot of people with a different accent, their D sounded a lot like a T. We have examples in English. We kind of, oh, look, you're from Minnesota. You have a bag instead of a bag. Irish, something that our buddy Mel should be familiar with. American speakers hear their tree as tree. So, but to an Irish, there actually is a difference between 3 and 3. Like they aspirate the T and the other one somehow. So there is a difference.
Right.
But to us, they both sound like TR. And whenever we kind of put on a fake Irish accent, we say it like me lucky charms, where's the 3? Kind of thing, right? We don't say 3 with a aspiration.
Right. So what Mary is alluding to is that if a sound is not part of your native language, you have a very, very hard time picking it up, of seeing the difference between 2 sounds. Like to you, L and R sound, if you're a native American, a native English speaker, L and R sound like extremely different sounds. But to people who speak Asian languages, they aren't different sounds in their language. So they have a really hard time with words, right? That's where a lot of the making fun of the way Asian people speak comes from. Because to you, they sound extremely different because they're sounds in your language. But to them, they don't sound different. They sound basically the same. And Mary's just giving an example of a sound that we don't have in English. So that's what she's getting at.
Well, that collapses even within different accents within English. So even within
it can be within English.
Because I didn't want to talk about foreign language that people probably wouldn't recognize. The aspirated versus unaspirated B sound or P sound and Chinese is not something that
Right.
is going to make any sense to people.
Okay,
But-
fine. So a
Right,
different
right.
example would be the A sound, right? So most people, if I say I get married today, or I'm talking to Mary, they'll hear it the same way. But in some dialects of English, those are completely different sounds.
And the spelling is different. Signifies
Well, the
different,
spelling
but-
is different. But
Uh,
I'm saying to most
but
people,
it's, yeah.
they sound the same.
But Al-Jalad, he wrote that the D is an aspirated and sounds like a T to both Aramaic and Greek speakers. So that was his conclusion from a rather more technical and lengthy statement. This is also never written with an article. So how can it be a title if it doesn't have an article? Now, here's a question. Why do we know that Minnesotans actually sing a bag when they say bag, or an Irishman is saying free and not tree, even if we might hear it somewhat differently? How do we know what it really is? And how do we write it correctly? Because it's a familiar word to us in its context. Why didn't many Syriac speakers realize that it was HMD, especially at first? Because it wasn't a familiar word in context. It wasn't a familiar name. It wasn't a familiar title. They didn't recognize it as something that they should know. So let's look at the Greek transcriptions of Muhammad that people really like to make a whole bunch of. 19th century Byzantine court went all the way to, and then the one that's a Y there is really kind of a ooh kind of sound. So it's
Muhammad.
There, thank you. Yes, we have a Greek speaker. Thank you. Now you do the modern official version. Look, there's no H stand in there at all. Go ahead.
Muhammad.
Okay. Ooh, notice different endings, consonant, and no stand-in for an H. And we'll talk about why that is in a second. John of Damascus wrote it like this.
Muhammad.
Oh, look. Different sound. Go ahead.
Muhammad.
There we go. There are other early sounds.
And these are all Greek speakers, right?
These are all Greek speakers. And it's never written with an article. Modern, we also find these in modern transcriptions. Go ahead.
Muhammad. These are the same, like either you put N before the T or you don't put it. It's like same thing.
Yeah, you just ignore it. But still different spelling.
You just ignore the N. It's nothing.
Now, I want to note something specific. Sometimes we know in Greek, you will double the letter when you have a rough H, or you will put the, we call it chai, I'm sorry, and math. I know that's not how it's pronounced, but we put the chai in. Yes, I know.
Yes, but these are two different names.
No, they're the same name. They're the same name. They're the same person.
They are the same name because in Greek it would be different name.
Well, they're the same person.
Maybe they thought it's a different name.
No,
That's
they
why
did
they
not.
wrote it this way.
No, they did not. This is about
Rahab.
Rahab. Yeah, they're both about Rahab, the woman of Jericho. They're both about Rahab, the woman of Jericho. One time they write it without any H at all. The other time they write it with a chai. Why do they write it differently? Because if it were just a regular H, you don't have that sound in Arabic. If it's the Khadija sound, then you always write it as the chai. If it is the rough H sound that's in between in multiple Semitic languages, including in Hebrew, you can do either one. And sometimes people do one, and sometimes people do the other. Because
Mary,
yes?
Mary, if in Hebrew there is a letter that can distinguish the two, like as if they are two different names, but it could be the same person, right? then that's maybe why they wrote it this way. If you say that it is
They're
the
not two
same
different
person,
names. No, in Hebrew, it's always written the same consistently, absolutely, without variation.
No,
there
what
is
he's
no,
saying is
there is no
the
difference then.
transliteration from.
It's the same name, it's the same person.
Mhm.
There is no difference then. Either I'll say it Rahav or Rahav.
Mhm.
The second could be from a little bit more modern style than the first, and that's it.
Yeah, it was just a different author. Matthew did the
Yes,
second one,
a
and
little bit
then
more modern, like
yeah,
more closely to the first century. The other could be much more further before first century, like second century BC or something like that.
well, that's actually James, so
Could
it's
be.
also first century. They're both first century people.
But what he's saying is
But yeah, the style.
the dialect he's using might be more
The dialect,
congruent.
yeah, the dialect is used differently.
But that's why you have these differences exist. So that would lead you to believe that all these places where the is doubled,
No,
then you are leaving out what is not rough enough to be a sound.
no.
So you have the ra'ab
In
because
Greek, we
you want to
wouldn't
have
do
a
anything like that.
Look at
In
rahab
Greek,
right now.
right now, I don't know
Mhm.
about the ancient Greece. I cannot speak about that. But right now, all of these Greek words that I see there
Mhm.
is same. It's a same name.
Yeah, it is the same name. I'm saying, but they're not
Yeah.
pronounced exactly the same.
No, they're not pronounced exactly the same because different people wrote them at different times.
Right.
For maybe for the same person.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying that, especially the ones with the double A's or those double vowels are the same as the ones with the cha.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
and arguing that they must be different people and that it must not be pronounced Muhammad on the basis of
No, that has no basis.
Yeah.
No historical basis or linguistic basis.
Right. So thank you for coming up for that, because I did not have to like pathetically attempt to make a difference between the T sounds, which
which you can't do easily because it's not.
A lot of these, this is not.
So A here, right? A
Mhm,
here
sorry.
says who chose the thumbnail. You have J. Smith next to recent Orthodox saints, Saint Iacous, Saint
Iakovos, Porphyrios, and Paisios.
Thank you. Labeling them as Muslims. So you're taking the thumbnail too literally. I picked an image that people would easily recognize as Eastern Orthodox. But if you want to suggest some different saint imagery for me to replace it with,
I said use historical icons, but he liked that one better, which is fine because he wants it to represent like living people, right? That they were living people that he was calling that. But,
I think Thaddeus, you wanted to just show that allegedly these are Muslims, but they're Eastern Orthodox.
So the point is that
I understand it.
It's
let
all
me
the
tell
same
you
name.
something. But people in the Eastern Orthodox Church, they don't know that their popes or their monarchs weren't always dressed in black. That was done because of the Ottoman Empire. They made them be dressed in black.
Yeah.
They don't know that history behind the black dresses of the popes and the monarchs and all of that.
All right.
Yeah,
so
fair point. Fair point.
Very quickly, Al-Jalad mentions about a plausible, just how the pronunciation Muhammad could have sounded to people that would cause these writings. It is a fairly technical one. If you want to bring it up later and read it in detail, I think that the technical grammatical argument would be
think
lost.
that you've already gotten way too technical for most people, so please don't get more technical.
Nope, I'm not going to get more technical, but I'm just... so Coptic transcriptions similarly have Ma'amet, and this is the long E is length. Ma'amet, 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 Mahmet, Mohammed. Sorry. So they have a whole bunch, and all of these, none are definitely prophetic, like not about Muhammad the prophet clearly, explicitly, except for the last one. Armenian, which is the one that he says, oh, that's totally an interpolation. This is spelled Mohammed, even with gemination represented, though gemination is not a native feature of Armenian, and it isn't native in Armenian, but they felt like, well, let's show it longer. Let's write an extra M. They spontaneously did that. So
would it be good to wrap up here?
We're this is the last topic. I have 30.
Well, I know, but we've covered 3 topics in 4 hours, and my
yes,
wife would
but the
like
last few have been very fast because we got through the beginning. All right.
If you're gonna insist, you gotta deal with Crystal's wrath.
Yeah. So the fourth topic of today and the final topic is Muhammad as a title of Jesus. So if Syriac speakers were so unfamiliar with the name of Muhammad that they got its transcription wrong, could it have been a name and used by Jews or Christians for Jesus? Never heard of Muhammad, that they got the T wrong instead of a D. Would they have made that mistake if they were already using it? Is that even possible? Jay wants this name to always be Jesus, and notice he wants it to be Jesus in the Dome of the Rock, except when it's in the Christian written sources when it refers to an unknown collection of mystery figures who are all violent and fake messianic folks. But this is not grammatically a title, period. The complete Syriac Aramaic database for Jewish and Christian literature in late antiquity showed that it never means praise one. The HMD is related to praise only in Arabic and South Arabian, never in Syriac and Aramaic. It never refers to a human as a name or a title, just a description, like, oh, you're a precious thing, you're my darling, right? It is never used in a messianic context ever, and the Muhammad form only occurs once ever, and so is a very rare word. In the entire corpus, it only appears once as a desire, the desires of our eyes, not messianic at all. No Muhammad that's messianic at all. So this is a shibboleth. Anyone who does not represent this correctly is just
Can you tell us what shibboleth means?
So a shibboleth is a test from the Bible where they were trying to do a litmus test type of thing, where you very quickly assess whether or not someone is legitimate or not. If you misrepresent this, you are not legitimate. There is no evidence to the contrary. So that's it.
Yeah, and I put out this challenge earlier, but I'm going to reiterate it again. Mel, Jay, if you ever watch this, bring me evidence that this is a title of Jesus that is not from a Muslim document that you are claiming to be a Christian document that's been modified or whatever, right? Show me an unambiguous
may I ask a
document
question
with this title for Jesus.
We're wrapping up.
Jay is claiming that Muhammad is a title of Jesus from Christian literature or from Muslim literature?
That it was pre-existing already, that it was something that was adopted and all the Christians would recognize as the name of Jesus. He says from Ugaritic, Hebrew,
or maybe,
and Aramaic.
Or it could be, as I said earlier, Mary, to you, that historically Marcion was exiled and his followers were exiled to the east, right? Outside of the Roman Empire, at the known Roman Empire.
No, this also includes, these words also includes stuff in Persia. This also includes Persian literature in Aramaic. So any Aramaic that was in Persia that has survived to the present day is included in this. So
the whole thing, what I'm trying to tell you is that even if they had a guy called Mohammed, or whatever you want to call him, with all these kind of names, there is no, how to say, place as it ascribed in Quran in the in the Arabic region, just as it's described in the Quran.
What do you mean?
We'll deal with
we'll deal with that later.
A different day.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll deal with that a different day.
Huh? Sorry.
We're wrapping up.
Yeah, so that's a completely different topic than what we addressed today.
Okay. That's what you. Okay.
And I've dealt with that before. I have.
We have talked about it before, but I really do need to wrap up. And the claim of Jay is specifically that this is a known title of Muhammad.
Or of
And
Jesus.
whether the place is right or not has nothing to do with whether this is the title.
Yep.
Yeah. Did I say a title of Muhammad? Yeah.
Yes.
Muhammad is the title of Muhammad. We obviously I meant Jesus.
All right.
So that was it?
Yeah, I told you I'm
Okay.
done. I said when I was done.
What? I didn't catch that exact word. All right. Thank you for
30 slides. I
joining
told
us.
you I had about 30 slides.
Yeah, I know. Joining us today, I got a couple comments from the audience that I wanted to bring up here. What would Mary make of obvious theologically motivated interpolations in the Quran, like 7431, a secondary redactor, or original author reworking the original?
That's my favorite. So 74 is my favorite. It's the most obvious that this was from one person. Because what's happening is that Muhammad is here trying to spout poetry, and people are like, what are you talking about? What is sakad? And he's like, oh, don't you know what sakad is? It is that which burns stuff and leaves and doesn't leave stuff and does this and doesn't do that and blah, 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 and over to 19. People are like, that does not clear anything up, Muhammad. What the heck are 19? And Muhammad's like, and then Muhammad just loses it. He forgets to do poetry, and he just has word vomit for an entire paragraph, swearing that the Christians and Jews totally know what the Sakad and 19 are, and that everyone who is truthful will have no doubts because of this Sakad and 19, and because the Jews and Christians are totally going to know what he's talking about, but nobody has ever figured out what he's talking about. So, yeah, a lot of the Quran is interpolated by Muhammad himself. There are additions as he's going along.
I will allow for the possibility of later interpolations. For example, I think that the Ahmed passage is probably an interpolation, but that's neither here nor there. Thank you, Mary. Generally, Muhammad modified his own writing. Mark Fish says, Mel seems like such a sweet guy. What has happened to him to act like such a jerk? And yeah, it is weird. Like Mel, like I've never had an unpleasant interaction with him. He's always seemed like a very nice guy. But he's kind of like gone off the rails in response to the Robert Spencer Mary debate. And all I can think of is that it's a very emotional reaction to having his argument questioned.
I think he got really, really, really convicted by the slide that has the chart on it. That's why he's obsessed with it and wanting to nitpick details and go, well, yeah, they're unbelievers, but why do you claim that they're anti-Christ theology if they're just called unbelievers? Well, because they're not Christian.
So Dr. Kufarphobia said, hey, isn't there coins with a Jewish menorah? So the favorite one to talk about is the Mohammed coin, as they call it, the Christian Muhammad cross coin. But there's also one that there appears to be a menorah on it that they sometimes bring up. Any thoughts on that real quick, Mary?
It doesn't have the menorah. People are just misinterpreting it.
All right. That's your short answer. We can go into that in more detail another time if necessary. But notice, even if it was a Jewish coin, that would not have anything to do with whether MHMD is the title for Jesus or not. All right. Please send Mary to Spa Day. Yes, Mary, you've earned a Spa Day, according to Hatchet here. Wad was in the chat. I hope you enjoy us defending the existence of your prophet, Wad. I hope you appreciate it. See, we're honest people. When we bring criticism against Muhammad, it's our honest criticism of Muhammad. When others bring criticism that we don't think it works, we're willing to say that because we're honest people. Any final thoughts from you, Weird Stuff?
I don't know what to say. I'm a spectator. I hear both sides. For me, both are true. Like, could be a historical person, could be fictional as well. Why? Because for me personally, I don't care. I know that the truth is Jesus Christ.
Amen.
You know, that's my only concern. When I started 10 years ago to search about it, it was clear after reading some things, that the Quran is full of contradictions, so it's not from God. Then I started reading the Bible, it made more sense, researching it, and the truth is Jesus Christ. Everything else is just like to have a discussion, nothing else.
Fair enough.
But very
Mary,
good.
your final
And
thoughts.
so my final thoughts are that Mel, or Jay Smith specifically, Mel called us semi-Muslims. Jay Smith wants to set this up as you're either with us or you're with the Muslims. In reality, as James S. says, it is very common for Islamicists to claim everything to be a precursor to Islam, even when there's zero evidence of anything remotely Islamic. And guess who is playing into that? The mythicists are. Oh, Islam comes from this. It has this connection. It has this authentic connection to this and this authentic connection to that. And it's just sprung out of this and it's sprung out of that. And it's honestly from this. No, it is a cult of the desert bandit. It comes from the fevered head of one dude who heard stories and repeated them. It does not have authentic roots in some kind of spontaneous movement within Christendom. It doesn't. It is illegitimate. It is an illegitimate foreign child thrown on the doorstep that wants to eat the inhabitants inside the house, like in a horror movie. That is what it is.
Any stream that ends with a description of Islam as a horror movie or the other kind of horror movie, it's fine. Fine by me. Sorry. So I do want to end on a serious note, though. Once again, this isn't personal. This isn't because I hate Mel or I hate Jay Smith. I think they're both nice guys. I think that they both have a heart for Christian evangelism. I also think that they are profoundly wrong on this particular topic, not just wrong in terms of the facts, but also wrong in terms of this being a wise idea to repeat independent of those facts. As such, same goes for Robert Spencer as well, although again, I don't put him in the same category. I view him as much more responsible with the evidence than Jay or Mel. Once again, invite is open. Even though you chose to attack me personally and call me all kinds of names, Mel, my invitation to you that I also gave in private is still open. I don't mind if you want a name call, but I would suggest bring arguments in opposition to what we are saying instead of name calling. Then we can both, at least in principle, move towards the truth. That is how you get to truth, is by examining arguments, questioning you, and responding to them. All right. Thank you all for watching today. Keep delaying the members only live stream that I've been wanting to have. Things just keep coming up that are more pressing, obviously. Hoping to have that on Sunday now. Saturday, having a discussion with the lowest ranking, or no, sorry, not the lowest ranking Muslim, Mr. Squiggles from the chat, Dul Farkan or whatever his name is. But I usually call Mr. Squiggles. Going to have a discussion with him on Saturday. Is Islam the true religion? Tomorrow, hoping to have Bible study over on the Reasoned Worship channel. If you haven't checked that channel out and you're interested in Bible study, put into your YouTube Reasoned Worship and it should pop up. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to log off here and go tend to my wife, who I told would be 3 hours. We started a half hour late, which she didn't know, right? And then we also ran over, so I am now an hour plus late coming to see her. So thank you all for joining us today. Until we meet again, God bless everyone, and prayer of Pastor Jake, of course.
Pray this ceaselessly. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me.